Welcome to Interdimensional Gummy Bear Podcast. My name is Dr. Robby Ellis. Interdimensional Gummy Bear is a place for interesting conversations with interesting people and hopefully some unexpected insights. Today we have with us Mr. Jared Foster of the Velvet Ditch and Sean Merrill, a partner in the Velvet Ditch as well, and also my best friend. Jared Foster, the Velvet Ditch is in Oxford, Mississippi. And I looked this up today. The Velvet Ditch is a place that it is easy to get into and hard to get out of.
That's right.
So tell me a little bit about what the Velvet Ditch means to you.
Okay, yeah. So we had the bar idea a long time ago of like running a sports bar in Oxford, and timing is everything. God's timing more importantly than anything. Saying that, that's how I met Sean. We had run into, Josh Berry, good friend of mine, introduced me and Sean. Mm-hmm. Without that introduction, I wouldn't have him as a partner, and that gave birth to what we were trying to do moving forward. Sean came in as an investor for our plan, our mission, which was a seafood sports bar on the corner of the square in Oxford. Where the Abner's location is, if you guys have been to Oxford, that's like prime location. Mm-hmm. You played Monopoly as a kid, you got Boardwalk and Parker's Place, and whoever has those two spots kills the game, right? Well, we lucked out because that location was like Boardwalk of Oxford. It's the highest pass corner on the square. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's like the main entrance to the square, which is where everybody goes for entertainment. And it's a walk to the campus. Right. So that corner happens to be the closest corner to the campus where alcohol is sold. Right. And that was our goal. Put an outdoor sports bar up there, but that parking lot on that corner was called Abner's. It was a chicken place. Mm-hmm. Well, there's only 16 parking spots there. So we had to fight the mission of how are we going to make this work in a real small 2,000 square foot building, but there's 7,000 square foot of property. So we went through battles with the city on, and we went full speed because we went in with the idea of like, we're going to do this no matter what, even if it's only 2,000 square feet. But how do we get them to approve getting rid of the parking lot? Right. Because we wanted to put an outdoor turf area, TVs, bars, 2 other bars, 12 more bathrooms. And of course, the question was, can we do this? Luckily, Sean, Barry White, his family, my mother, they came in as investors and got fully on board. But then it came down to battling with the city. Mm-hmm. So what the Velvet Ditch does is we are luckily before Velvet Ditch, we already had the brother-sister Land Shark Company. Mm-hmm. So we run Land Shark Seafood in Oxford.
Boiled seafood.
Yes, sir. We do crawfish, shrimp, crab, lobster, everything in between. Well, then we wanted to do like a Land Shark 2.0, but instead we named it the Velvet Ditch Seafood and Sports Bar and put it on the opposite side of town. So by doing that, we now have an outdoor seating area being built over the next 45 days. Took us 7 court dates with the city of Oxford. That was a major catastrophe because that is a historical department. And for us to be able to make it work, we had to go through historical, preservation committee. We had to get approved by the city. We got our permits pulled because they weren't satisfied with what we were wanting to do. And there was a lot of red flags because people assumed that we were going to be some, crazy, loud college
rock
bar.
And roll,
exactly.
Yeah, concert environment.
So that's just kind of the short version of where we're at now. We've been open now for 11 weeks. We started only being able to do phase 1, which is the inside, and then now that we've won our court dates, which was a major battle, as I mentioned, we're now destructing that whole entire parking lot into 125 more seats, 400 person capacity.
You're gonna do turf.
Turf, yes, sir. We're laying the turf over the next 2 weeks.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're excited.
That's so cool.
Yeah, great staff, quite the challenge. But we are the only true seafood place in Oxford. We've monopolized that. I mean, we have, but also outside of seafood, Sean hooked us up with his filet recipe.
No, hey.
It's that exact recipe. I'd never cooked, man. I'm not even a chef. I'm not going to sit and pretend that I even did anything right. Yeah. Every time I turned my head, God introduced me to the next person of the puzzle piece. And that came into our fillets as well. Sean was like, I got a great steak. I said, bro, you're going to have to make me a video and dial this in. And next thing you know I copied his recipe, and now we're selling as much steak as anybody in town, really. There's like 2 other places that are selling steak on the square that kill it. But we have become a steak place on Mondays and Thursdays. So we sell meat.
I just want to cut you off for a second because y'all don't actually have the same version. So it's not as authentic as you think it is.
It's Sean's steak.
Because Sean's steak is cooked with his fingers.
Yeah, yeah, there we go. That's so true.
And then he likes to cut my food, and then he likes to place it in my mouth if I let him.
There we go.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
We remember that time we were like, we were somewhere, and I was like trying to feed you, in the restaurant.
Yeah.
That's why it was 3 different clips, huh? You sent me, there was one clip of how he did it, and the next clip, so you went ahead and cut that part out.
Yeah, you didn't
right?
see that part.
Yeah, so
But go ahead, I'm sorry.
No worries. That's funny.
My kids don't even think about it probably now, but when they get older, they're probably gonna be like, "What? You don't touch people's food?"
But our immune systems are
Stronger because
they're
of
awesome.
it, right?
Yeah, Sean has helped. Thank you, Sean. This is what he actually told me I should be thanking him. I'm like, Sean, he goes, you should be thanking me. Your immune system's going to be like off the charts.
That's great. That's what I say about biting my fingernails.
I'm like a walking immune system builder.
Yeah, dude. Thank you, Sean. Okay, get back to the steak. Sorry.
So it's basically Landshark 2.0, but with a sports bar at night. So from 11, well, actually Monday to Friday we're a 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. food. We don't open for lunches, and then from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. we're bar scene. Anything in Oxford that sells alcohol after 9:30 is going to bring the college crowd. We focus this business on, you look at it like a birthday cake. The bread is the locals, and the icing is the college kids that come out and party at night with us. And we're not in the, at first people were like, man, you're not on the beaten path. You're not next to the library or Funky's, and obviously like those are the biggest bars in town, and they've killed it forever. Our goal was to put something else for the locals away from shoulder-to-shoulder college kids all day.
Yeah.
And a lot of people question would it work, but since we've opened, dude, we've been slammed. I'd be lying if I told you we've had more than 10 return food items since we opened.
Right. Out of how many do you think?
Dude, thousands.
Guess.
Thousands.
Give me a guess.
We're turning on Friday. Well, let's say this. On the weekend of Georgia, that Thursday to Sunday, which was the busiest weekend in town, Georgia came for football, obviously, to Oxford. And weirdly enough, that was our 4th weekend being open. So we got, we rushed open. We opened for Oklahoma.
I know.
Oklahoma was our opening weekend.
Right.
I was like, and by the way, 70% of the staff had never worked together.
Right.
They had not made that menu. So we just took the menu, cut it in half, and said, all right, we're going to do what we can do perfect. But Georgia weekend, Thursday to Sunday, we rotated about 2,500 total people in that 4 days on plates.
Wow.
And we did not have a single return.
So you're talking over 10,000. Over 10,000.
We didn't have it. Yes.
Combined.
Easily.
Yeah.
We've had over 10,000 checkouts so far. Saying that
that's incredible, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. And honestly, it's a bulletproof system for us. And it's not a one-man thing. It's a whole village of people. But it's also our customers, because they know when I transferred from Landshark, we don't promote the 5-star reviews we get. We get a 1-star review, and I post that. He'll tell you. I throw it on social media, and I say, hey, find this person that's wrote us this 1 star, and let's fix their meal. And that's what the city knows us for. Yeah. So they can tell us if it's not good. And that's what made our brand what it is the locals that help us build that business.
That's such a great way to deal with that.
That's what it's, for me, as an investor, so often, I would say specifically in the food industry, you're dealing with people in and out all day long. And so it's been so cool to see when he was like the opportunity, because he didn't ask me, it kind of just happened organically. It was wild, and I was like, hey, what about this? Because I was interested. The moment he told me he was doing it, I was like, man.
Well, I remember you talking to me about him before this even came up. It's just like, just really admired you a lot.
Yeah, I just loved the way he communicated, the way he handled himself. But every single crowd that he puts himself with, for whatever reason, he's leading. And then when I've watched him communicate to his staff, that sold me.
Yeah.
Because it was like, it reminded me of Vin Diesel in like Fast and Furious.
That's great.
He's like,
I'll take that comparison.
Yeah,
that's great.
Dude, that's some hard swag.
Because,
I'll take that.
well, because your guys are
That's
like
awesome.
that. They are, because he can look at them in the face and tell them exactly what's up, because they know that he's put in the exact 10 times more work than most people. He's not scared of work. He's the guy that's waking up 2 or 3 in the morning, driving to Louisiana, picking up the crawfish and coming back. He's not asking for them. As an investor, he's one of the least paid people out there working.
Yeah, to be transparent, my paycheck last week was $390, and I worked 72 hours.
Right.
But he knew what he was walking into.
And you're building an asset.
Yeah, the reason my paycheck was that way, to build on that, and I appreciate that, was I knew what we were doing was going to take some sacrificing, and it also takes making sure that my staff is getting paid properly. And when I came in to do this, I decided that I would work off tips. So I'm a waiter, I'm a busboy,
Right.
I'm bartending. He'll tell you I bartend with him till 1:32 in the morning, whatever it may be, that we're still up there counting it all.
Him and his girlfriend, Shelby, they literally will wait almost every single table themselves. They'll wait every single table themselves.
Yeah, if me and her
That's
together, I luck out because I have such a great staff from Corey, Josh, Noah, Elliot, all the way down. But I'll schedule it to where Shelby will cover the floor because she's tiny, 5 foot, and like cute as she can be, and her personality's great.
Right.
But she was not a waitress. She was not a bartender. She's a nurse. She's never worked in this industry before. But she came in, and like when I'm doing it, it's easy that if I tell them to do it, but I'm willing to do it, as you know, 100%. As a business owner, they're going to follow in line with you.
Sure.
You know, and
you can model it because you have experience.
Yeah, I do. And then I care about people. You know, like when I go to a place, I want you to treat it like it's my last $15.
The golden rule principle, man. It's
Right.
a great business strategy.
It is. And then inside of business, you know, I was telling a customer yesterday, they were like, man, we're behind you. And I was like, well, if you're ever not, that means we dropped the ball. But I tell everybody, you just treat it like it's your grandmother. If you treat every customer like it's your grandmother, you'll be fine as long as you have a good product.
And then you also you'll actually get some close relationships and some unexpected fun, cool things that happen just because you're open to not just being that way. And I believe in that. That's how we try to operate too, where it's like once you see people commit to that,
right,
you see that they get a lot, that you're so fulfilled. Your life has, your workplace is where we spend more than time with our family.
Right.
So it needs to be full and rich,
Facts. I wake up vibrating. Like people literally at 7:30 in the morning, whatever time it may be, when I wake up, I'm ready to go. I don't ever wake up and go, man, I got to do this today. I don't know what, that comes from so many failures probably. I've failed so many times in life that I took advantage of being 6'5" white in America and having a successful family in front of me that I just didn't understand what it meant.
Sure.
And I lost a little bit of time on that,
Right.
that we could get into another day, I guess. But the main birth of it all comes down to the village that we have, though. Like I'm not here right now. I'm not there right now. We've been open 10 weeks.
Sure.
I'm not there. The business is going to run the same tonight. That comes down to my staff respecting their job, respecting leadership, and in return, me teaching them to be a business owner.
Sure.
I do not hire you if you're interested in just being a fry boy.
Hours.
Yeah. We have, there you go, the hours mentality. But also, like, you go to our kitchen right now, and if I pulled my phone out, you'll see the text. This is to my kitchen staff today. I said, hey, I'm out of town today. That doesn't mean each of you shouldn't be learning something new. We make sure the guy bussing the tables and the guy cleaning the dishes can cook the steaks. If they can't, then it's a problem because next man out, next man in. We're in the restaurant industry.
That's right.
And I tell them as well. Sean will tell you this. We pay the highest. We pay the highest kitchen in Oxford. All of our employees in Oxford make the most money. At Landshark, our busboy splits tips with the front of the house. We've got some hardworking employees back there that never shake a hand, but they split tips. And what that does, it keeps me from having to fire anybody because you're not going to work next to Johnny if Johnny's working slow and you're splitting money with him.
That's right.
And that's the mentality that we've had. It's passed along, and now we're in a boat where, at first, I thought we need this expansion now. And I know you don't have much background on this, but I'm a go guy like you guys are. My brain was like, let's do this now. I want this turf now. I want this fence now. And every time we do that, it's funny because I bloody my nose, not physically, but spiritually. Sure. 6 months later, after the blood dries up, God goes, hey, I told you so. Like, sit down. I got a plan for you.
Yeah.
If we would have gotten as big as we wanted to get from the jump, one, I wouldn't have had him as a partner, investor, and now a best friend. And we would have failed.
Yeah.
The business model may have succeeded, but we would not have 6 return food items.
You can't fail to launch. And there has to be a critical time in the beginning of every venture where you put the freaking pedal to the metal and you pour energy and support and you gather, you rally the troops, you circle the wagons, you pull and you ask everybody that you've ever been engaged with to be a part of this thing. And then eventually it settles in. There's this working pace that you hit, but that's dope that you hit it like that. Because it's scared to fail. And honestly, it's just channeling anxiety in a way, because I think that's where we might see eye to eye a little bit, is like that's really what's driven me in a lot of my success is that anxious energy.
Yeah.
It's like you're getting something's just always pushing you to like you got to keep moving. You got to keep doing this. You got to make this vision come true.
So true.
Because you feel like God is literally like he's shoving you forward. Yeah. And it's like sometimes you're like, no. And then other times you get ahead of yourself and it can create a lot of stress and so being a little older now, because I brought you here to hear. I love, because it's all a part of you, and obviously Sean. But I really do want to hear about Jared Foster, the man, and because I think that's a more compelling story, to be honest. And so, and I know you have a great testimony, and I know you're very open about it. And I think that this is like obviously a great chance for you to tell your testimony. One thing. I did see that you played football. You want to start there and maybe tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that up. It's funny, we came in today and I've had people say, where are you going? I'm like, dude, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I'm going to, Sean committed to me from day one, and I'm going to, as bad as the timing is, I'm going. Yeah. I was like, Sean asked me to do something. Even last night, I messaged him. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it.
But and then what did I say?
And you said, I don't care. What fits you best. Don't pressure yourself. And for me, it was like, man, but how do I juggle this? And it came down to let the anxiety ride. Your business is going to run without you. Mm-hmm. But that did come down to, like, my father was such a successful father by just being present in my life. You don't realize it as a kid that, like, success is not based off money and identity. I thought everything was about who am I and how much money do I have. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize until I failed so many times and couldn't catch up with the time with my dad and fix those things and the pain that I caused him through the dumb decisions that I'll get into in a bit if that's where we're headed. Mm-hmm. But my father gave me the ability, and my mother worked her tail off, obviously. My parents divorced at 2 years old. Luckily, both my parents were able to remarry, re-love. But as a child, it was like, man, I don't like the stepmom. I don't know about the stepdad because I'm a kid, But looking back, luckily they stayed in those relationships, and it taught me two different cultures of life, and I was able to see them love properly and teach me that, transitioning into relationships and out of them isn't always a bad thing.
That's right.
And it gave me two different cultures of life, from Hattiesburg, Mississippi to Canton, Mississippi. I went from public school to Oak Grove to just wanting to be able to be my father's son. And me and my brother moved to Canton to be able to be present in academy sports. Also the fear of, man, I might not make it at the public school. I'm 11 years old. Sure. Like, what if I don't make it? I need a dad, right? Because every kid's dad was every kid that had a father was making the all-star team. Mm. And when I didn't make, I batted, literally, my dad will tell you, I batted over 800 when I was 11 years old and didn't make the all-star team that year. And it was like, how did this happen? I got on base every single time. How did I not make the all-star team? They said, oh, man, well, Coach Bailey's son, catcher as well. I'm like, dude, what? Called my dad crying. Dad, I got to move. I want you to coach me. I moved to Canton, got there, 17 people in each grade. You go to, as 11, 12 years old, the whole world shrinks. It was like, I didn't even know Madison Central was a school 15 minutes up the road. Because my dad was so successful that I was able to actually motivate myself because he was my hero. I'm going to play baseball. I'm going to play basketball. I'm going to play football. Anything my dad's willing to be present at, I'm going to be there. He was at basketball practice. My dad did not miss, no lie, 2.5 hours away. My father did not miss a T-ball game or flag football game from the time that me and my brother, not just for me and my brother, and we're 4 days shy of a year apart, so that's a lot of sports. My dad never missed a game. Not one single game. The only game he missed was a game that I was supposed to sit out of. And I was 11. That was right before the playoff thing. Funny, I'll make this quick. He told me not to play because I had a bad attitude. I chunked the bat over the fence, and I've short fused and thought it was cool. It wasn't cool. Dad told me to sit out. We were the worst team in the league. We were playing the best team in the league. And I told my dad, okay, no problem. He told Coach I wasn't playing, so my dad didn't drive down that day. I decided to BS and went and told the coach, hey, Dad said I could play, and I showed up with my jersey. And I played that day, and it happened to be tied up, and I was on third base, and I kept seeing the catcher be lazy, and the catcher would throw the ball back. And when he did, me and Coach talked about it. I was like, Coach, when he does that again, I'm still at home. We had nothing to lose. Mm-hmm. He tosses the ball back to the pitcher. Pitcher's walking slow. Right when he goes to toss it, I take off home. I score. We win the game. Everybody tackles me. I leave. But my father missed that game. And that was something that stuck with me a long time. That even though I did it and it was celebrating, the man was not there to see me do it. And that was like a rebel thing for me. I'm 11 years old, grew up an Ole Miss Rebel fan, but that was my first sign of like rebellion. I went and did it, and I shouldn't have done it to my dad. My dad gave me a rule, and I should have set out. Yeah. I think it hurt him worse than it did anybody else because he missed the celebration. Sure. He wanted to whip my ass. Yeah. Obviously. Yeah. He wanted to pull the belt out on me. But on the phone, 2.5 hours away, it was supported. But then I moved. So I get to Canton. They moved me up to varsity as a 12-year-old. I played quarterback, basketball, baseball. When junior high practice ended, I went straight to varsity. So it was from 2 o'clock to 6:30 every single day. So the whole world was about identity for me. Who am I? Who am I going to be? And I never had a plan B because my dad was so successful by just being present, because he worked his tail off in that time period of being divorced from my mother. He was able to work really hard and get ahead financially and caught the wind that God gave him through an insurance company. And then he was able to get out of that and be free from me and my brother and my sister, stepsister, which is my sister technically. But so that transition, played sports growing up. Man, we grew up 1-10. Canton Academy, they had won state championships and stuff before we got there, and then they went down a downward slope. So I got used to getting my tail whipped every game. We were 1-10, and every time we get beat by 30, I got to wake up the next day being the quarterback telling the guys, hey, we got to do it better. But truth is, I had a bad attitude. You know, I'd throw a pass, and I'd blame the guy, hey, man, catch the ball. You know, and I just had that. I had that attitude, and as I grew older, I realized that is not the attitude to have on obviously trying to be a leader.
Sure.
And that led me into, you know, as a point guard, as a catcher, you know, as a quarterback. Those are all leadership positions. So it was like God had already ordained the idea of a leadership role, in which at the time I thought that leadership was to lead people to more money, success, and identity. My junior year of high school, you know, the big coaches were telling my father, you got to transfer the kid to a public school. You got to. It's not the same as it is now, where private school kids can play public school and still get the great scholarships. Barely any private school kids were getting those types of scholarships they're getting now. It's just a different game. So junior year of high school, had 23 rebounds in the first half, playing the number one team in the state. And coach had a rule, and I broke the rule, and I didn't care. I went up being aggressive, kind of like dunk era right before halftime. Coach was pissed that I took off with it. I was annoyed that he was mad because we were within 4 points of the state champs. Why are you mad at me? I just had the best half ever. There's got to be a record. 23 rebounds in the first half. What are you pissed off about?
Right.
Of course, coach gets into it with me, my ego attitude. I snap. I walk out, not at the locker room. I walk out of the third quarter, and coach says, hey, you're not playing this half. I wasn't taking no for an answer. What do you mean I'm not playing? You know, and I had to learn that day that I should have taken no for an answer. It sent me down a crazy spiral. At the end of the third quarter, we were down 20. The game had completely shifted. My dad was pissed because my dad didn't see what happened in the locker room. My father only knew what he knew, and as the student of the team, I should have been learning from my coach that he was trying to teach me a life lesson. He wasn't just trying to teach me about basketball. But at the time, I didn't understand that. My dad looked at me in Madison Central. Right. That's what he did in the crowd. Wow. And when he did, I stood up, I walked to the locker room, I walked out. I dropped my jersey over the back of the coach, and I left. Not only did I leave, I left all my best friends. I left myself in that locker room. I left a small culture for what I thought would be more, which is the Lucifer mindset. More is what you got to have. And I didn't know that one bad decision or one injury would lead to losing that entire identity goal that I had. So then I get to Madison Central. I walked into a school with 2,000 kids. That was, imagine being the quarterback of 17 kids in my grade. Imagine, and my dad had to make the sacrifice to get me my own house my senior year because you couldn't play without that transfer. So my dad was sleeping in a different house than my stepmother just for me to play those sports. So obviously everything was built up that I didn't need God. I'm not saying I didn't. I'm just saying my perspective at the time was I did not need God. My father was my God.
Right.
That led into me letting down my God, letting down myself. The fear of not being able to be enough was a major situation. I transferred to public school. The day of the jamboree, things were going well, and I tried to hit a dude out of bounds that I'd been mouthing with the whole game. And I tear my perineal, however you would say it as a therapist, peroneal, however you say it.
Peroneal,
in my ankle, I tear it.
Tomato.
There you go. I tear it in my ankle. We don't want to tell anybody that it's as bad as it is, but coach knew, my dad
pull a piece of bone off with it?
Yeah, so basically they put me in a boot. So
Usually can pull that fifth metatarsal, a little piece of bone off with it too.
Yeah, it was bad. I started taking some pain meds. I also started taking Decadurabolin. I was taking anything I possibly could to make sure I didn't miss my senior year, which for those of you that don't know, Deca is a steroid. Soon, I was looking up to my other idols and they were doing steroids, and soon it was like bigger, faster, stronger. We got to make this work. I can't drop my dad's dream. I can't tell people I'm sitting out my senior year. Oh my God, what about these scholarships? Well, I played my senior year, but I couldn't throw the ball. I couldn't even plant on my right foot. So all we did was suck it up, run pain, triple option down the hill, and go. Well, I felt like I was letting people down because I couldn't complete the way I wanted to. I wasn't able to fulfill it. Well, that football season ends that year on the 3-yard line against Olive Branch, and I felt like it was all because of my injury. I went in my head, we should have played for state. There goes some identity. Next thing you know, there's a wild party down the road. Football season's over. They no longer need me. Imagine being the backup quarterback that I just took your position. Imagine being that guy. You're the backup QB that took the position. I took your position. The only people that really liked me was the girls because I was the new guy. All the guys were already persuaded that I was there to be their competition when I wasn't. I was just there to fulfill a dream for me and my father. So they invite me to his party. I get there and they tell me the party is shut down. So I'm like, okay, well, I was invited over here, but we'll leave. No, we should go to your house. You got your own house, go to your house. So we head to my house, 15 girls and 5 dudes. One of the 15 girls that happens to be there is dating one of the guys that was over at the house. And she says he can't come over. So we tell them they can't come over. Next thing you know, what police are called. The high school kids called the cops. Cops knock on the door. They come right in the house. I was never late for curfew. I was the DD. I didn't smoke weed in high school like that. I didn't drink. Literally, sports was it. And that night transitioned everything in my life. Everything. From the quitting to that school to going there to transferring. Next thing you know, I'm in handcuffs. I've contributed alcohol to 17 minors, possession of Decadurabolin and Winstraw. And the kid living with me at the time was was living with me, and both of us were doing it. And soon the cops have us arrested, and all the kids are sitting out front. Their parents are coming to pick them up. My life's flashing before my eyes. You're
not an insider either. You're an outsider. Even from that police perspective and stuff.
Correct.
Because like me and Sean were we were protected in a way. Like we were insulated because it was our community.
Right.
And so we were lucky because there was a lot of stuff we got away with.
Right. And then, in the small town thing, you kind of feel like you run it. And I still had that mentality of like, oh, my dad will get me out of this. But sitting in that moment, my whole life flashed before my eyes. I had cops telling me that we were doing 5 years in prison apiece. My dad wasn't standing there for that conversation, and they were wanting to know where we got it from. And I was getting it from somebody really close to me that I will still never say their name. And at the time, the kid with me told the officers where he got his bottle of Winstraw from. And it happened to be from a 16-year-old kid. And next thing you know, they wanted that 16-year-old kid and his dad. So we're all sitting there, and out of nowhere, the 16-year-old kid and his dad get in trouble because of the decisions that we made. And karma set its role from that point forward. As a non-believer in God, it never hit me until I end up at Gulf Coast Community College. I'm at Gulf Coast, losing these scholarship opportunities. Wesley Ladner. So I get down to Gulf Coast Community College, and Coach Campbell recruited me down there. I went down there because Jack Hayes called me. We need a quarterback. We get down there, win a national championship, and then
I know Jack.
Houston Nutt takes the Ole Miss job. When Houston Nutt takes the Ole Miss job, in that 10-month period of transitioning while I was at Gulf Coast, I sold a bottle of testosterone and I was buying my own steroids, 19 years old, buying them offline, okay, or through a relative or a friend, whatever you want to call it. And next thing you know it, Houston Nutt's on the phone. He's like, hey, man, we need a Matt Jones, and you run the triple option. We need you to come play inside slot receiver or quarterback for us. One of the two, we're going to get you a spot up here. They bring me in, and dream come true. My dad pulls over on the side of the road. He's bawling, crying. My son's an Ole Miss Rebel. Everything had come true. I had never once in my life had to pray because my dad had laid it out for me. But not only did my dad lay it out for me, God laid it out for me. I'm 6'5" white in America. I was the fastest swimming sperm cell that day, not by choice. And God literally said, You're going to be 6'5" in America, and I'm going to give you all the ability, and you're going to possibly screw it up. And at the time, I didn't look at it like that because, again, I was atheist.
Sure.
And even though I was at church on Sunday, my parents raised me at church. My grandfather was a pastor. I was raised in church on Sunday, but never needed it. It was just there because I needed the identity, right?
Sure.
My life, I'm at Ole Miss for a month, and my life crumbles before my eyes. The cops pull up. They tell me that I've got a warrant out for my arrest for selling steroids. Karma has now come full circle. This kid gets in trouble a year and a half before that. Next thing you know, I'm on ESPN for selling a bottle of steroids. And of course, I stick my thumb in my mouth. Why me? Poor me. Why would this happen to me? God, screw you. Mine and my dad's dreams are over in my mind. The whole world. I'm 19, man. The whole world exists around you as a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
I didn't have that.
I saw that article, and it said that you were actually working out with the team, and it's just crazy to me because it also says clearly you're 19 years old, and it's just incredible to me that there is a time and place that we can blast 19-year-old kids for what? Like it's crazy, and I would assume that you said karma, and it is spiritual. But yeah, looking at that, it was almost disturbing just to think about like that was a 19-year-old version of you.
Yeah.
And you got this viral article, I guess, you know.
Oh, man, it was on ESPN. It was not good.
And you got these adults that are putting out this narrative, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a little crazy.
Well, you look back on it. They introduced me. The system introduced me.
But steroids was it was in a weird.
It was that Barry Bonds, Mark McGuire era. It was like
at that time, that's a part of I think the wave you got caught up in. You know,
of course it was, and at the same time, like each person's going to learn their lesson in due time. I believe that's the God that we serve now, or that I serve now, should I say?
Did you do time for that?
They sent me to prison.
Wow.
For one bottle of testosterone. Not only did they send me to prison, they sent me to Walnut Grove, where there was not enough guards to let us get out for our regimented inmate discipline program. I was fighting every 2 to 3 days. The first day I got in there, it turned into a dude sticking his finger in my brownie and telling me, you're my bitch, all those things that you don't want to hear that'll push a 19-year-old to testosterone. But also, dude, imagine having to go from an Ole Miss football field, possibly NFL mindset. And even if I would have never played, even if anybody that played with me would say, "Oh no, he would have never made it." That's okay. They said the same thing about Joe Burrow, Michael Jordan. But as a 19-year-old, my mindset said that's what I was doing. And instead, I end up in a prison cell, 23 hours a day, 7x7, no visits, literally. But once a month, your parents can come visit you once a month. One phone call a week. They read your letters you're sending out. Next thing you know, I'm just surrounded by like straight gangster mentality. Talk about going from a sheep to a black sheep. Black sheep mentality. 5 months later, I get out. I go back to Gulf Coast. We're 2 weeks away from winning another national title. And, dude, a freak accident. I believe it was spiritual because I was back doing the same egotistical mindset I was living, that I was in control of my life and I still didn't know God because I should have found God in that jail cell.
5 weeks, you said?
5 months.
5 months. Wow.
And it's 7x7, 23 hours a day. Probably why I'm a little bit crazy, right? So go back to play football at Gulf Coast. Steve Campbell has me there. Luckily has me back, gives me another opportunity. I get back down there, and we're 2 weeks away from the national championship, and dude, we're in practice, and a player comes through and shatters my sternum. Scar right down the middle. It was on a punt block. I wasn't even supposed to be in on the play. I had my shoulder pads untied, and his helmet just centers me. He wasn't even hitting me, trying to hit me. He just hits me. Yeah, shattered my sternum. That was my first taste of Oxycontin. I hit my knees, couldn't breathe. They take me in. They tell me, you're not playing football again. Of course, my ego, I'm playing again. Whether you like it or not, I'm playing again. They transfer me up to Belhaven, or I transferred to Belhaven. And that was another shot and an opportunity to be surrounded by godly people. I didn't take advantage of it. I walked around campus thinking, man, these guys are losers. They got their whole life committed to this this Barney character that was not real. Right. That was my mindset of it. Well, found out the hard way eventually that they were right. But I went out first day, full pads. I got back in the best shape of my life, fastest I've ever been. And first day of full pads, I wanted to go ahead and find out if it was broken. I wanted to find out if it was going to break. And the nose guard 6'3", 330 pounds, was who I decided to go one-on-one with. And everybody there will tell you that day, it went really well for me in that one play, but it didn't. When I hit him, I felt it break. I ran one more route. My sternum was broken. They took me in. They said, you got to have a titanium plate now. And they basically restructured my chest with a titanium plate. Didn't play football again after that.
I'd like to see those x-rays.
I lost my entire identity at that moment. It was like, who am I? Where am I going to be? But more importantly than anything, I was holding my middle fingers up to God. It was victim mindset of poor me, why me, poor me, why me. Not what are you trying to teach me and who am I? You know, and man, that was a very hard transition for all the youngsters that are out there that don't know. You know, I was just talking to his brother-in-law as well about it. Man, he's 24, and he even openly said it. It was cool to hear him say that he was, you know, he's in that identity crisis of who am I at 24 years old, not playing sports anymore. It was for him to be able to say that. He's way further ahead than I expected. So, should I say, without even knowing him, just to hear somebody say that, it gives me insight that people are growing at an earlier age than I did. Yeah. Well, football ended, sports ended, but soon I needed to be somebody else. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know it, man, I went to a Pretty Lights concert. After 4 months of healing on my Oxycontin, I went to a Pretty Lights concert, and man, dude, when I tried Molly for the first time, it was wow. This is better than a touchdown. But I was literally, I was dipping off of Satan's goal for my life. Mm-hmm. Satan was trying to destruct me. I looked out at that crowd and thought, man, dude, this makes me happy. Soon my nickname was Happy. Soon I was selling Molly. Soon I was selling mushrooms. Soon I was selling LSD. Next thing you know it, man, I'm still on parole. I'm on probation.
21.
2021. I'm on probation at the time. I'm not supposed to be doing any of this. Whether I'm on probation or not, that was obviously the wrong choices, but I was making them. Mm. But soon I was cool with being 180 pounds. Soon I was cool with being 170 pounds. I'm 6'5", 230.
Wow.
I was $169 the day that it led to, and I was at a music festival. I was sober at the time at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. When I say sober, I'm talking at that exact moment in the day. Mm. I'm at a music festival, and I hear a girl screaming for her life. And I run over to the medical tent. I'm not even supposed to be out of the state of Mississippi, okay? I'm not to the medical tent. I run over to her tent. I hear her screaming. I run over there, and next thing you know it, this situation, she is she's bleeding, okay? Dude takes off running with her bag. Me and a buddy are together. I pick her up. I run her to a medical tent. 200 yards. I get her to a medical tent. Cops come to the scene. She tells them it's her ex-boyfriend, etc. I give the officers my number. I'd only been there an hour and a half. I had 8 grams of mushrooms in the car, probably 10,000 cash because I was hustling. And that night at midnight, my phone starts ringing. And it's the officers, and I answer. And there's bonfires at all of our campsites. And he tells me, hey, man, we've got the guy. Can you come identify him? We think it's him. He's got the blue wig. I'm like, no problem. So I should have said no, but it was also God at that moment calling me, trying to warn me, like, you need to get your life together. I head back to the campsite. When I get there, they got the kid standing by a golf cart, but he's not in handcuffs. Well, it's 4 officers. 3 of them I've never seen, 1 from the same day. They go to ask me something to identify him. Kid takes off running. I don't think they've ever been to a music festival in the woods, but they're not catching this kid. He's gone. One of the officers gets pissed. He says, "Hey, did you know him?" It turns into all these questions. My pupils are massive. I'm on mushrooms. I'm tripping. I'm tripping.
Oh, that had been stressful.
I'm tripping hard. All right.
Yeah.
Pupils are huge. Flashlights in my face. Now I'm nervous. He's like, hands on the hood. I'm like, dude, I came to help you guys. What are y'all doing? Next thing you know it, face on the hood, putting me in handcuffs. I start raising hell. Keys are in my pocket. They pull my keys out. They press the alarm on my car. They find my vehicle. They search my truck. They take my cash. They take my mushrooms. They take me to jail. Now I'm calling my innocent father. Dad, $52,000 bond. I'm facing blank, blank. Now I got a probation violation. I got a court case. What am I going to do? Who am I? Life's over. I'm screwed. This is like 3 years I got to serve, and this is a 5-year, 10-year sentence. I'm about to be in major trouble since the state of Florida. I skip the court date. I don't go to court. I don't go back to my next probation hearing because I don't want my probation officer to arrest me. I'm scared to tell him I've been arrested. Dude, it spirals. Next thing you know it, I'm moving 30,000 a weekend, 70,000 a weekend, 100,000 a weekend, and I blew it all on people that I considered friends, people that would show up at the festivals with me to help move it, and that turned into a major spiral that kept rolling. Soon I get pulled over, man, and I have 169 pounds on July 2nd, 2013. I bail out of the car with 2 duffel bags. When the cops pulled us over, our story was that I was homeless. And when the cop came to the window, I was in the passenger seat, and I was still high from Electric Forest Music Festival. Had not seen my family really much over a 2-year period. My parents were telling me to turn myself in. I wasn't turning myself in. I'm not doing 12 years. There's no way I'm not doing that.
I couldn't imagine.
Oh, dude, imagine being my father. Imagine being my mother. They did it all right. And for the parents out there that are like, man, what do? You got to let go, let God. There was nothing they could have done, and I want to clarify that. There was nothing they could have done to have offered me and my brother a better life. I could not have had better parents, realistically. I could not have had better parents. It was the choices that we made, the choices that build or destroy us, all by yourself. That's what it really came down to. And self-love, I'd lost it. Identity, didn't have it. Community, was trying to fake it to make it. And I bail out of the car, but I told the officer, I was in the passenger seat, I said, hey, man, you didn't pull me over, you pulled him over. So you got to get the driver out. He gets the driver out. They knew who they were pulling over. We had just crossed over into Illinois. And they get the driver out. He goes by Nuts. His name's Dustin Freeman, but goes by Nuts. My nickname was Happy, and his name was Nuts. And we used to...
Happy Nuts.
Happy and Nuts. It's my dude. It's my dog. And he was there with me from day one when he shouldn't have stuck around. Saying that, I bailed out of the car after the cop got him out. Grundy County, Illinois. July 2nd, 2013, thick green trees. Never been in those woods in my life. If you ever played hide and seek and you got a little rush from that, this was the biggest rush of my life. And I never want to feel that rush again. But my goal was to get killed. My goal, I wasn't turning myself in. I wasn't doing 20 years. I had $300,000 worth of cash and drugs in 2 duffel bags. When I bailed out of the car, I ran. Within 20 minutes, I ended up on the mayor's property of Grundy County, and I have no idea how this happened.
Wow.
And while I'm on the mayor's property, this four-wheeler rides by, and it's these kids, and it hits me. It's like, oh, my God, this is just like my dad's house that he raised me in. He gave me everything. What am I doing? There's 2 helicopters / planes circling, man. I can hear cop sirens everywhere. Well, while I'm running, I had broke my foot at Belhaven, okay? I broke my sternum.
Same one you tore the peroneal?
But actually, yes, same foot, but a right bone, at Tommy John, whatever, not Tommy John, no, Frank Liz. It's Frank Liz.
Frank Les injury.
Yeah, Tommy John's arm.
Shut
Frank.
He said he tried
Les
to get
Frank.
in front of me on this stuff.
Why am I telling you? I just remember Cotton Brett having a Les Frank injury.
Okay, yeah, so Tommy John's
Frank,
baseball.
Les
So
Frank,
yeah, whatever it was in my right foot. That, luckily, the tension in that foot, and this in my vision's another God thing. I'm running in the woods, man, and you're talking like limbs stroking me, right? My life's flashing before my eyes. I'm done. I'm carrying these bags. I go to fall off this ravine. It's like 5-foot ravine. Well, the water's only about 3 foot deep. Well, when I go to fall in and I slam, when I do, I feel my foot break. When my foot breaks, I come out of the ravine because I'm not thinking. Keep running. The ravine's going through Grundy County. It's a ravine like this. Green, thick trees. While I'm running, I'm like, oh, my God, I should have ditched the drugs and money. What am I doing? I got to get rid of the drugs and money right now. I got to get rid of them. I have to get rid of them. Well, luckily, when I hit the ravine again this time, the water's higher. I find a log, and I tie the vacuum-sealed money and drugs to the log. And I start running again to the best of my ability, and I end up on the mayor's property. When I'm on the mayor's property, I'm surrounded by the cops. If I would have been caught at that exact moment, I would have not had the drugs and money on me. So there was no way God could let me get caught. Because if I would have been caught with the drugs and money right then, I would have had to go back and do the Mississippi time and the Florida time. So not turning myself in that entire time, which was the wrong thing to do, let me say that, it was the wrong thing to do, to continue to stay down that journey was not the right thing to do. The stories about God pulling me out of everything that I didn't deserve to be pulled out of. And no matter how bad I messed it up, God pulled it forward and resurrected this. Mm-hmm. And this will prove it. On camera, that day, I come out of the woods that night. There's lightning bugs in June are lighting up the woods, and I sit, and I'm talking. I can see the mayor with the gun, his son on the back porch, the dog barking, and I go to crawl out of the woods, and when I do, I look up, and there's an American flag that half the size of that wall in this room, and it's flying on a pole in the mayor's yard. And I'm like, it hits me. I'm like, oh, my God, I'm in a free country. I've ruined my life, or my friend's in jail, or my parents, what's going on? And at that moment was the first time I was like, God, where are you? Like, what is going on? That next morning, I come out of the woods. I get a hold of Dustin. Dustin comes and picks me up, okay? When Dustin picks me up, the next morning we have two friends come in from Illinois that he calls to come pick us up too. They drop us back off at the ravine, and when they do, we tread the water, but my foot's broken, so I'm arm over Dustin, over nuts the whole time. He's carrying me through the ravine, trying to help me find the drugs and money. We end up finding the drugs and money. We come out of the woods. I get in this white car. When I get in the Pontiac Grand Prix with my two buddies that were also hustling with me before that, we start driving off. Thank God I got the drugs and money. Next thing you know, we're surrounded. Cops come out of the woods. They're on top of us. We're screwed. When they come out, I get out of the car with the drugs and money again, and I don't last 5 seconds. These officers whipped my tail. Not only did they whip my tail, they had the right to do so, but I got out of the car in hopes they would kill me. I didn't get out of the car to run or fight them. I got out of the car because they had 6 guns pointed at the car, and I was praying demonically, this is it. Cool, I'll die. I get out of the car, go to fight. Next thing you know it, they don't shoot me. They spray me with like bear mace, it felt like. Every cut I had, every demon in my soul, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs. Soon I'm handcuffed, my hands to my feet, backwards like that.
Hogtied.
And out of nowhere, an angel steps out of the car. And when I tell you an angel stepped out of the car, an angel stepped out of the car. The officer that had pulled us over the day before was so pissed and humiliated. Whenever he pulled up on the scene, he got out. And this is all on camera. He gets out and he starts stomping on me while I'm already handcuffed. And he's stomping right on that foot. The foot's already broken. I'm screaming, my foot, my foot, my foot. They drag me to the cop car. They take me in. The whole way there, I'm raising hell about my foot. They take me in, and the sheriff on camera says, what have I told y'all about this? Take him to the hospital. Admitting that it's happened in that county before. Mm-hmm. They take me to the hospital. They x-ray my foot. My foot is broken. They now think they broke my foot. Still to this day, officer, you had no idea. He has no idea they didn't break my foot.
Wow.
They didn't break my foot.
Wow.
Okay, you can see me limping from any view. My foot was broken. They take me back to the cell. They put me in a padded room, which they should have, because I would have killed myself that night. And no ifs, ands, or buts about it. One sharp object or even a concrete wall could have slammed my head against. I'd have slammed it, and I'd have been dead. Mm-hmm. They put me in a padded room. I won't wear the clothes. I'm butt naked, raising hell. And the sheriff comes in and tells me, you got to stop. He's like, just stay out of trouble, and you're going to go home from here, man. He's like, what my officers did to you was wrong, but I can't guarantee you what's going to happen when you leave here, because you got warrants everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
That next 7 days in that padded cell, my bond was $620,000. But even if I'd have bonded out, it wouldn't have mattered, because I was going to do more time elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I sit in the cell, go to court dates. Soon I've gained 30 pounds. I'm sober. Dustin's 4 cells down. I'm in a 7x7, no window, no sunlight, no visits. Nobody wants to come see me. They don't need to. I don't want to see anybody. And I'm just crying every phone call I get. Drugs are coming down. I'm sobering up, and I'm realizing, man, I've ruined my life. And I got in a really aggressive battle with that brick wall that night and that Bible, and I was trying to rip that Bible in half. I remember it. I never knew that book was that strong. I was trying to physically rip that book in half, screaming, where are you? Where are you? And I'm bawling, crying. The next morning, the guard comes in and tells me I can go to church. And I thought, oh, man, I'm going to get to see my boy. He's like, and the guard was nice to me. He said, man, you're going to get to see Dustin. You should go to church. Real old, 80-year-old guard. Then God bless me. He put me in a 32-person county jail. It was not dangerous in that county jail. They were feeding us country fried steak, dude. Mm-hmm. I'm not even joking. I went, like, it was like,
You put on 30 pounds. Yeah.
I literally just gained weight, dude. Sitting in church that morning, me and Nuts were talking, and the pastor said, man, y'all got to stop. I said, dude, I've heard this shit before. I've heard this Jesus stuff. I'm good on this. He's like, well, then you can go back to your cell. And I was like, oh, no, I don't want to do that. What he said to me changed my life.
Praise Jesus.
Praise Jesus. That man walked back there and said something to me that changed my life. He walked back there and he leaned down and nobody heard him. And he said, if God's not real, what are you so mad at? And at that moment, it hit me. It's like, wait, why would I be mad? If Barney was in the street saying he was Barney, or somebody was praising Barney, we wouldn't get mad at him. We'd think they're out of their mind. Mm-hmm. Why am I mad that all the people I love praise this one thing I don't have a relationship with? Mm. I went back to my cell that night, man, and I cried and cried and cried and cried. And I realized I was the common denominator of the problem. And I told God, if you ever give me the opportunity to talk about it, I'll tell everybody on the planet about you, whether it's in here or out of there. Please reveal yourself to me.
How old were you here?
I was 24.
24.
Yeah, I was 24. This is 2013. 3 months into my case, man, I was facing 40 years. I was given a 40-year total bid on all the states combined. I was 24 in that one county. I was facing 40 years. The judge told my father that I'd bury him in handcuffs and that there's no way I was coming home anytime soon. So I was calling my friends and I got them to raise $25,000, and they raised $25,000 to get me an attorney. I thought I could buy my way out of it. You know, I still wasn't at that point that I didn't need to pay for anything, that I could just trust God to be my attorney and my judge, even though, man, I was guilty. I was guiltier than the murderer and the rapist next to me. Man, to the left of me had sex with his 7-year-old daughter for 4 years before he got caught. Oh, and 3 years old, 7.
Gross.
But I was guiltier than both of them because my father and mother laid out a red carpet for me. God laid out a red carpet for me by choosing them to be my parents. I was guiltier than both of them. I deserved every bit of the time they were going to give me. And there was no arguing with that. Even though I wanted to, there was no arguing with it. The sweet guard the next day pushes in the book cart, and all the books are facing like this, like they would be at a normal library. And the only book facing me is The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel. On the back of it, I think it said, like, once an atheist becomes New York Times Writers of the Year, a homicide detective of the year, proves factual stuff about the life of Jesus Christ. I'm like, factual? Well, you got what you prayed for. I read that book, and I didn't put it down that night. I finished the whole book before I went to bed. I set that down. However long it took me, I didn't finish it. I didn't go to bed. The next day, I realized when another piece of paper came under my door, it said Bible on it. It said basic instructions before leaving Earth. Bible. And I was like, whoa.
That's dope.
Yeah. It hit me. I was like, man, this is where I'm supposed to be. Yeah. And that day, I committed my life to Jesus Christ, and I said, whoever you are, wherever you are, I'm not going to be perfect at it, but I'm down to get closer to you. And I felt a warm blanket wrap around me, and I remember calling my mom, bawling, crying. I said, hey, Mom, everything's changing. And she's like, what do you mean? Well, you got to imagine being my mother. You know, I'm calling on LSD. It's her mindset. My son's fried his brain, and now he's committing his life to God in a jail cell. But who cares? Because I can't go to church with him. I'm not going to see him again. I'm not going to laugh with him again. Both my mother and my dad's voice was just, hey, son, how you doing?
Sure.
My dad is like me, like you, like Sean. I mean, he's got that enthusiasm. And that's what gave me the characteristics, my mother and father, of what I have now. But there was no getting that out of my dad. And so every phone call was just a letdown. Man, that night, everything changed. I, for sure, have handwritten letters to my mom about a white bird with black tip wings coming to me in a dream, telling me that I was going to go home early, that everything is going to be okay, and don't kill yourself, and stay positive. And this bird was my consciousness, obviously. But imagine being my mom, getting these handwritten letters that she still has about this bird. And she's calling my dad, going, Jared's talking
Somehow
about
he's getting LSD in prison.
Yeah, he's high.
Yeah,
he's high, right? So that kept happening, and that bird would come to me kind of like lucid dreaming, and I could talk to it and have the conversations with it. And that $25,000 attorney never got me a better day. He brought me 4 of my best friends' names basically on paper is what he wanted.
And you were in this was still in 23-hour lockdown?
This is 24 hours a day.
24
hours a day. We're in a 7x7, and you could come out of your cell. So the first time I went, which when I was 19, to Walnut Grove, which is now shut down from all the murders, all the testosterone, the kids killing each other, they shut that prison down. Walnut Grove, I don't think is open anymore. It definitely closed because of murders and testosterone. So this was luckily not the same thing, because if I would have been put with an open cell of 100 gangsters, I would have been down for them to kill me. God knew that. But I was told something interesting. God sees each of us as $1 trillion. What would you do with $1 trillion? You put it in a safe. Or everybody be eating.
It'd be a big safe.
There you go. Or everybody be eating off of it. If not, it's got to go into a safe spot. God sees you as $1 trillion, and you're in this safe right now to become that investment God has planned for you. And that was something that has stuck with me forever.
And that's about as big of a safe as you can find in a prison.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it was cool to start looking at it as I am God's plan. This is God's plan. This is okay. Everything I've done, I'm going to be able to help people find God in this jail cell. It wasn't about finding God, helping people find God out of the jail cell. I didn't think that would so much happen. That wasn't in the thought process. But the bird was telling me different. 10 months into my case, the warden comes over the phone. Well, let me back up. I had 3 ounces of methamphetamine, Molly, should I say, still hidden. And I called my mom, and that was for when I get out. You know, it was always that backup stash that every drug dealer and idiot has, right? And I called my mom. My mom used to tell me when I was a kid, she'd say, don't ask God for, excuse me, burping. Don't ask God for anything, son. Just ask him to give you what you need. And that's what my mom used to tell me. Well, I never meant that prayer until I knew God. I started saying, God, give me what I need, wherever that is. Just give me what I need to get through to the next day. Give me what I need. Well, I told my mom, hey, Mom, you know, we've lost the $25K with the attorney. We've gotten no better offers. We're up shit creek. And she, you know, did not accept the news very well when I told her that I had 3 ounces hidden in her house. She did not accept that very well. But she had about 5 minutes to accept it because we were on a recorded phone call. And we're in a small county jail, and we're talking about 3 ounces. I said, Mom, you're on a recorded phone. Get it now and flush it. I need you to know that if I was let out today, I'm not coming back to that lifestyle. I'm not coming back to be a drug dealer. And I need you to know that I'm putting all my faith in God. And no matter what, I need God to know that I'm done too, because this is the only thing left I'm holding on to that means I'm a drug dealer in the background. Because if I came home tomorrow, that would be in the house. And I'm worried about you getting arrested with it. My mom flushes it. This is mid-March 2014. She flushes it. On April 27th, 2014, the warden comes over the phone. And the warden says, your mother has an emergency. And I don't know what the emergency is. You know, you gotta relate. I was getting drugs from bigger people, right? And I always wondered what happens if you don't pay it. What happens, you know? You see it in TV shows, you see it in movies, but what really happens to not paying it? Well, my mom's crying. He did it, and I'll never forget her voice. Same way I won't forget my dad's voice whenever I got that scholarship and he said, my son's an Ole Miss Rebel. And I wanted to make my dad that proud again, but that was something I'd never hit in my mind. My mom, when she said he did it, that moment was surreal. The cop that should have been nice enough when I helped them save the girl, when I helped them, for a whole year and a half, I kept telling my mom, it's a crooked cop. He should have taken up for me, man. I was helping identify a guy. Why am I on the run for drugs? Why am I being charged with possession of drugs at this music festival? I helped this girl. Why, God, why would you do that to me? I asked myself that so many times. And then to get to the point to where I was that day when my mom said he did it, I had no idea what she was talking about. I was worried. Is my brother dead? Is my father dead? What's going on? And instead, the cop was federally indicted for stealing drugs. If I had been on the run, if I had not been on the run for 2 years, the cop wouldn't have been being watched. If I would have turned myself in at any point, I would have done the time on the probation case. Every single thing I did wrong was resurrected by one officer making the same dumb decision that I did, and that shot everything out the wind. That changed all of our court stuff. The judge that thought my foot was broken by their officers brings me back in. And when they bring me back in, the judge tells me, he's like, man, you gained 50 pounds. He's like, I've been here forever. You look completely different. But if you go back to Mississippi before January 1st, you're going to get a probation violation. So you're going to get a probation violation. He said, if you do that, you're going to have to serve 3.5 years. Said, so if you plead guilty right now and you take this, you still got to go back. He said, but I'm going to cut you a deal. And he cut me a deal at 4 years at 50% to serve, which was 2 years. I'd already done 10 months. I had 14 more months. By taking that time, I don't go back to Mississippi and do my probation violation. The whole entire drug case of everything I had over my head was cut down.
Wow.
All over an officer out of Florida, dropping the ball. All over God, should I say, which shifted everything. So I plead guilty to that. And when I pled guilty to that, man, I started having dreams again while I was there. They transferred me to a maximum penitentiary. I was back in a 24-hour cell, but this time I had a cellmate. I thought that was going to be fun because I'd have somebody to talk to, but I'd rather just been alone. Because when you go to maximum security, you're in there with murderers, rapists. You're in there with every disgusting thing you possibly could be. And from some people's perspective, I was that disgusting thing as well. But I was in there to learn more about God and get closer to God. And luckily, Illinois allowed out-of-state inmates to get 6 months of supplemental good credit. So I ended up getting 6 months knocked off my sentence because prisons were too full. And since I didn't get in any trouble, I ended up getting out on January 3rd, 2015. Instead of having my parents come to get me, we bought a train ticket, and I got on the Amtrak. And I didn't want my parents to have to deal with a 15-hour ride.
What city were you in again?
I was in Grundy County, Illinois. And I got a train ticket home, man. And when I got the train ticket home, it was the most surreal thing. I was riding home, and
Did they know you were getting out and everything?
my family knew I was getting out, and they wanted to come pick me up. And I told them, no, I'd appreciate it if you just let me have that 15 hours by myself.
Okay.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to hug you. I don't want to cry. I don't want you to spend 15 hours trying to stay awake. I don't want to get hotel rooms. Just let me get the train ticket. It's so much better than a jail cell, right?
Yeah.
I get the Amtrak train ticket. I had nothing to carry with me. Get the train ticket home. We didn't know what we were going to do, what I was going to do for money. This is the first time in my life I'm going to have to make money legally. What am I going to do? And then I ended up talking to my father, and Kim Dietschy had held his hand up on his head and started doing the land chart, and it hit me.
Yeah.
And we need to open up a seafood.
After he got sacks.
Yeah, that's what he was doing. That was
Robert
the same year.
Nicomdici.
Yeah, Robert Nicomdici. And I said,
Is he still playing?
no, he's not still playing. He has a little similar story to mine. I believe he's probably dominating life right now, hopefully. But I know that football's not what he's doing. If he is, then I just hadn't heard anything.
Right. So he did
So
the
he
land
holds the
shark.
land shark up, and at that time I was like, oh man, I want to open a. The crawfish was my favorite food, and that's the one thing I'm really good at, and I'm not a chef. I can cook the hell out of crawfish, and I have a great recipe for it. And I didn't want to open that day though. We went to the state. I jumped on the name, the land shark, great name for Oxford. We were not the it was not our mascot yet at the time. We were in that black bear battle where there was going to be black bear. What's it going to be? And I got a crawfish suit off Amazon, a crawfish pot, and started cooking crawfish on the side of the road in Oxford.
In a crawfish suit.
Oh yeah, we got crawfish suit, and the guys that worked with me were willing to wear the crawfish suit too, and we started selling crawfish. And the first customer that pulled up, I nearly pissed my pants, and our recipe wasn't great. And then I realized, okay, it's not where it needs to be. And the next day, I did not stop until I dialed in exactly what I needed. In my opinion, we have the best crawfish in the country, and we've been voted best crawfish in the north half of Mississippi for years now. And that's what gave birth to Land Shark. But man, I always thought when you raise your hand that life would just get easier, because that's what they do in church. Raise your hand if God saved you. So that's what I always saw. I didn't realize that when you raise your hand, you're actually like swapping jerseys.
Yeah.
And the moment you decide to swap jerseys, Satan's going to try to destroy your life.
Right.
So getting out and then now being in the free world and being able, I got out in 2015. It's been 10 years, dude. But that never goes away.
So when did Land Shark start?
The moment I got out.
Really?
A week later, I went and started Land Shark.
And it was a food truck.
And then it was a food truck. Yeah, my dad was nice enough to help me get out from under the Easy Up tent and got me a food truck. And when he got me the food truck, we started building it. And then that turned into some major challenges. You know, I don't know how much further you want to get into that, but to not leave you hanging on that, and to not leave everybody hanging that would be interested in what happened and how the Velvet Ditch came the Velvet Ditch and why we named it the Velvet Ditch and where we are now. I danced in that crawfish suit, man, and
That's awesome.
Oh, bro, we dominated.
You found a 6'5" crawfish suit?
No, it was definitely not big enough to fit me.
Oh,
but
you was just making it work.
It worked, and I cooked in it. My one of the youngsters I hired in high school that was 16 years old, he dressed in it, danced in it on the side of the road. We'd be playing music, and people would stop, get out, and dance with us. And
That's awesome.
But it drew attention, and it built the brand.
And like no overhead.
We had no overhead.
Other than, I heard a story that you would drive down to Louisiana and buy their crawfish every day, like 5 hours or 6 hours or something, every day, because you said they had the best crawfish. So
yeah,
is that true? And how long did you do that?
So I'll give you more of that. So we cooked the crawfish. We were cooking the crawfish. That's what we had. Somebody pulled up and they asked for shrimp, and I said next weekend. Then somebody asked for snow crab, and I said I got it next weekend. So I started just boiling crab, shrimp, and crawfish. Well, then crawfish season ends. What am I going to do now? And this man comes to me and he says, "Hey, man." He's like, "I'll offer you 50% of a bar. I know you're a felon. You can't have a liquor license." He's like, you know, "I'm familiar with that. I got a past history too." Me and him connect. And that was the first moment that I made a transaction with a handshake that wasn't selling drugs. And I trusted another man to do his job and to pay me what I was worth, what I knew I was worth. But I had to prove my worth. So I didn't need a contract because I didn't know anything about business. I go in, I help him open a bar. We dominate. I make him $110,000 in 5 months. I hire everybody. Nobody trained me to be a manager, but God kept aligning the right people for me to be successful inside of that business, the same way he's done now. It is, I'm a failure without the village that I have and the people that have helped me from the top to bottom. Then we opened that bar, and then out of nowhere, 4 months into it, man, I haven't heard a single thing about a report, but I'm the one that I know how much food's coming through. I know what's going on. I hadn't even filled out a W-2, man. You hadn't even had me be an employee of your business. Well, like what? Like, am I going to get paid? Soon, things start getting sketchy. I confront him about getting paid. He's on vacation for 3 weeks. Soon, I'm having to pay the kitchen out of my tips that I'm making because I'm working next to college girls and making tip money, $2,000 a week, bro, fresh out of jail, next to college girls bartending. This is fun. Of course it is. Satan wants you right back in that realm. Well, he doesn't pay me. I quit. We leave. When we leave, the whole restaurant walked out when I walked out. The whole entire restaurant, except for one woman that had 4 kids. I told her, "Don't leave because he's going to put you in the management position and he's going to have to build the whole place around you. And I don't have an income for you." They all leave. A fight broke out in the parking lot 3 nights before that with a college kid, and that college kid was being jumped by 3 kids. I go outside. I break it up. One of them hits me. I end up hitting 2 of the college kids, and they hit me. I hit them back. Luckily, the cops didn't deal with it because it's all self-defense. It's all on camera. And the kid I took up for happens to be, and I won't mention his name in this podcast, he's from the coast down here, tons of family money, and he was going through the same transition that I went through when I was his age. Well, he came to me and said, "Hey, man, you're underused here. Let me pay you. If you're not getting paid, let's open a bar." So me and him opened a bar together on the square called Rowdy Rebs. And I dominate up there with Chad Kelly. I bring Chad in, the whole team in. We're 1 in, 1 out. It's packed. We're this new bar. 4 months into it, police. They're knocking on my girlfriend's door. They arrest me for stealing $13,000 in chicken tenders. I'm not joking. You know how much $13,000 in chicken tenders is?
Like a whole truckload, I would imagine.
Yes. Imagine Chick-fil-A 18-wheeler pulling up. Yeah. Okay? Impossible for me to steal, first and foremost. But his goal was, since he didn't pay me and I opened a bar 2 doors down from him, was to get me out of Oxford. Well, what's really messed up about that is I was on parole. They violate my parole 24 years. And 10 years is what I'm going to get on maximum for stealing chicken tenders. I need a chicken tender bandit hoodie, right? So that was a major spiritual turn for me. Wow. I'm like, "Oh my God, where are you, God? Did I get myself out of jail? Am I talking myself into this? Why are you doing this to me, God? Where are you at?" I'm back on the news. Who are you going to believe? The bar owner or the ex-drug dealer? Who are you going to believe?
That's right.
The bar owner. My dad knew better. My dad knew, Jared didn't steal chicken tenders. What is going on?
Yeah.
Well, a few people did and a few people didn't. But the ones that knew better, I started back in that crawfish costume and back cooking crawfish on the side of the road. We started cooking crawfish and we rebuilt Landshark brand while I fought the case. I hired Ray Tannehill, married to Robin Tannehill, which is the mayor in Oxford. I paid a large chunk of money for him to represent me, and he should have charged me a large chunk of money. I was arrested for stealing, and I was a felon at the time, and this was a felony case, and this is a big deal. But luckily, Ray was so in tune with reality because he's been through so many cases. He just looked at the facts, and he's like, wait, it's been 10 months since they filed a police report. What's going on? So instead of them violating me and sending me back to Illinois, which was the fear that I'm about to go back to Illinois, I'm going to fight this case from there. They're going to force me to plead guilty. I'm about to go right back through this. Why, God, have you done this to me when I did it? Why did you let me out to put me right back in hell? That was a major transition again, because I'm now questioning my faith. I'm questioning God. I'm questioning, why did I get out? Did this really? All these atheists that tell me, no, it's not God. You just got lucky. Are they right? Because that's what happens in every relationship. You have your downs and your ups and your ups and your downs. And at that point, I was down. But that was Satan at the table with God saying, let me have him for a little bit. And that turned into him having me for a little bit. I didn't know what to do, where to go. And my friend circle grew smaller but stronger because the ones that knew me knew that never would happen. Mm-hmm. And we had to rebuild. I met a 22-year-old named Dylan Holtz that I basically helped turn into the owner of Landshark because he has the it factor and he could be a mini me, but better than me at a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And Dylan is now part owner of Landshark in Oxford, come full circle. But Dylan kept that food truck in business while I decided to go chase my record label dreams in Colorado. I always wanted to be a manager of music and record label. I was going back to that scene. I was going back where I was hustling, back around all those people. And those people were great, but I wasn't. Say that again?
What year is this
2016, 17.
Okay. So like 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years after I got out. A year and a half after I got out, 2 years. So then growing weed was legal in Colorado at the time. Mm. So I go to Colorado in the off season of Landshark, but then I come back, and I'm waiting on my case or whatnot, mm-hmm. but I couldn't leave Mississippi until I got all that over with, really. So then we get to the day of jury trial, and no blessing. If I plead guilty to anything, I got to go do 24 and a half. Mm. Then I got to do 10 in Mississippi. So I'm looking at 34 years over my head.
For chicken fingers.
For chicken tenders, dude. $13,000 in chicken tenders. But luckily, I had faith in God, and I didn't take no for an answer. I got to that beautiful white courthouse in Oxford, and I walked in. I didn't go to bed the night before, and I walked in, and Ray said, hey, man, I got you a $500 misdemeanor. Plead guilty, and your probation officer's not going to violate you. You're good to go. He's like, I'm like, no, not happening. He said, Jared, what do you mean? My job is to keep you out of prison. It doesn't matter if you did it. Who are they going to believe? Who are you trying to prove this to? We go through it for 30 minutes. Mm-hmm. The DA comes in. The DA says, Jared, if you're found guilty, I got to give you the max. I said, well, you won't find me guilty because you just offered me a $500 misdemeanor, which means you have zero evidence because you know I didn't do it. They said, it's not about what we know, Jared. It's about a jury of 12. And I said, no, it's not about a jury of 12. It's about the same God that walked me out of prison that's not going to walk me back to prison when I didn't do it. I'm not doing it. And I live and die by the fact that now, I kind of say it's like God doesn't need another, story from Paul. I don't need to be the next Paul, so why would he send me to prison to rewrite about him? Mm-hmm. So Ray told me, Jared, I can't go in there with you. I'm friends with your dad. My dad built his pool. Ray did his job. He got me a $500 misdemeanor, okay? Mm-hmm. But the case should have been dismissed. There was no evidence. So in my opinion, at that time, I was mad. Why can't Ray just get the case dismissed? Why am I having to go risk my life? But I prayed about it, and my gut said, go do it. And I walked into the jury trial by myself with no attorney in a jury of 12. And I looked them all straight in the face, and I told them the truth, the absolute truth. Mm-hmm. I'm Jared Foster. I've pissed every red carpet in my life. But I was just offered a $500 misdemeanor, and my attorney's Ray Tannehill, and he's not in here. I'm willing to risk my life for the truth. I'm going to ask y'all 2 questions before y'all ask me 100, because right now I'm a criminal in your eyes. But I need y'all to know my life's in your hands. And I offered them very simple facts. One, there's 12 of y'all. And imagine this feeling of my whole body's numb. I can't feel anything. I can hear my voice, but I'm not talking. God's talking for me. Because if I say anything wrong, my whole life's over. One thing wrong, whether you did it or you didn't do it, you're guilty. The United States says you're innocent till proven guilty. You are not. You are guilty till proven innocent in that situation. And I said, there's 12 of y'all, right? If y'all owned a bar together, a restaurant, how long would you wait before a police officer, before you called the cops and filed a police report? They all looked around. I said, same day, right? I said, he just told y'all on stand he waited 10 months. I said, the facts are in it. He waited 10 months. And in that 10-month period, I opened a bar right next to him. I no longer can't run the bar. He's partners of the bar I opened with the guy. I said, this isn't right. I haven't been paid by the man. I haven't seen $1. I said, but more importantly, he also told you that the reason he didn't notice is because when he went to file the taxes, he noticed food was missing. I said, that's not theft. That's mismanagement. I said, but I brought the paperwork here today of the total amount of food sold, and this is the total amount of chicken tenders. Where are the rest of the chicken tenders? We didn't even order $13,000 in chicken. We weren't even a chicken tender place. They all look around, looking like, what? This nice black gentleman stands up in the jury, and he says, today's my daughter's birthday, and this is a waste of time. He's like, I'm over this. He was pissed. The DA asked him to sit down. They asked me maybe 4 questions. They realized the dude's a fraud on the case. I leave. And in this grand jury trial, they don't tell you if you're innocent or guilty right then. You wait to find out if you're indicted. So I had to go to bed, wait and find out. And then my phone rings, and it's Ray Tannehill. And Ray plays a little joke on me, and he's like, hey, man, he's real sick voice sounding. He's like, hey, man, what'd you say to him, dude? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he starts laughing. And he's like, good job, dude. And my case is dismissed.
I'll bet you about that.
I picked my dad up. Me and my dad were in the same field. We were next to my food truck at the time. I picked my dad up over my head. I remember very vaguely. I picked my father up over my head and started running around the field, just pumped.
Was that better than...
That was great. It was it was a touchdown for me that was over, but there was still a point where we weren't there. You know, like we weren't on the field with my dad. We weren't on the field. It wasn't a touchdown. It was still a why me, because the ego is going to say, why me, God? And my ego pushed to Denver, Colorado. So I moved out to Denver. And at the time, man, I don't want to leave anybody out on this. At the time, I dated an amazing woman that God put in my life at the time. I know he did. And, we went on a date for 9 years, and then I won't get into relationship therapy with you right now. So, but she was a huge backbone. She was a supporter of the trouble that I went through. She was a sorority girl. She could have left when I was on the news. She didn't leave, man. She stayed by me. There's no telling if if I wouldn't have had that in my life at the time, where I would have been. Honestly, I don't know. But when everybody else may have believed, she knew better. Because she worked there with me, and she knew me at heart, because that's who she lays down with at night. And by her having faith in me, I had more faith in myself and through God. And we moved to Denver together, and a bunch of my friends were living out there, and Josh Berry was out there. If this would not have happened,
right? Yeah,
I wouldn't be in here.
Right.
That's how I met Sean, was through Josh. I go out there with Josh. I'm trying to help him manage his music, my dream to run a record label. I'm helping Josh book shows, and, hey, man, this isn't working. We're out there for 3 years. It's just not working. We were both diving into things we shouldn't have been, going backwards, and God was trying to wake us up. And I happened to be at an Asian Cajun place eating seafood. And I realized they're selling frozen crawfish.
Trash.
And I'm like, wait, if they're selling frozen crawfish, I can go get them fresh crawfish and bring crawfish back to them. So what do? Next week, me and Luke, Josh is a really good friend. We drive to Louisiana. We pick up some crawfish, bring it back. I throw Cajun Cartel on a Polo. Didn't even have a license. Threw Cajun Cartel on a Polo and on a business card, and the farmer told me he'd been in business 34 years. Well, no brainer. I'll tell these guys, these family farms have been in business 34 years.
That's right.
We start driving. Josh helps me. Josh puts his backbone into it. I start paying Josh. Josh is driving to the farm. We're driving 24 hours, not 5. We're driving all the way from Denver to Louisiana. Josh is sleeping in the back of the truck, bringing the crawfish back. We're dropping it off at the places, and now we're supplying fresh crawfish all over Denver, Colorado.
Wow.
That gave birth to Cajun Cartel. I blow out my ACL and now I'm not going to be able to transport the crawfish anymore. Latter part of 2019 in November, when I blew my ACL out, I had a spiritual calling for me and my lady at the time to move back. We happened to find a house in Livingston, Louisiana, right in between the farm and Mississippi. Mm-hmm. So then we start using the New Orleans airport, and we're shipping crawfish from the New Orleans airport back to Denver to a Southwest account. That gave birth to crawfish distribution for what I do now, and then I started putting food trucks on the route, and now I've got 7 food trucks, Land Shark in Oxford, and we now ship crawfish through Cajun Cartel, and I move 40 to 50,000 pounds a week in March and April.
That's incredible.
And Sean saw that business model, met me, and then that is the fastest version I can give you of God putting me in the position I'm in now. One bad choice away from screwing everything up. But cool thing is like we just had to go through the most major court cases I think Oxford's seen on opening a business. Mm-hmm. For us to get that parking lot approved into being into a turf area, we had to go through court with the mayor, the board of aldermen, Ray Tannehill's wife, and obviously she's built one of the best cities in Mississippi. She, the community, everybody behind it, they just want it to be safe. But my mindset is, why am I not treated equal? And my faith in God didn't allow me to take a no. So even whenever we won the court date, and they said, Jared, just because you did everything right doesn't mean you should do it. I went home that night when my parents told me, Jared, we don't want to have to deal with this public drama. Can you please just let it go? I'm like, no, Sean's money's invested. My mother's money's invested. Y'all are invested in this. And my job is to consult the company and make sure that and I'm the consultant for the company, you know?
I saw a comment from the Oxford City Council that said, which is just like a typical way to shrug it off, said it was too industrial. That seemed to be the only like argument I could really see in terms of like why it was not approved initially. But
right.
But what's interesting is that you actually in the same meeting had it called back to and it was a unanimous vote.
Yeah.
Miss Robby Ellis.
That's right. She's a savior. That was amazing.
She called it back to vote.
She did. First time in Oxford history. So we went into court that day, and I've never been in a situation like this. I mean, I've been in stressful situations where my life was on the line, but I've never been in somewhere where when you're doing it right, you still can be told it's not going to happen.
But after defending yourself like you did, did it feel any? I mean, I guess this must have felt easy.
Prepared me.
It felt like much easier, I'm sure.
It prepared me. They kept asking me, where's your attorney? And I was like, I'm not bringing an attorney. Yeah. All the attorneys are friends with each other. And my attorney's Ray Tannehill. I can't hire Ray whenever Robin's going to be on stand. I've got to do this myself. And I didn't want anybody to fumble. Yeah. I wanted the ball.
Yeah.
I wanted the ball in my hands if we were going to talk about my mother's finances, Sean's investment, because that's their money. You know, like if we're going to do it, it's going to be my fault here, nobody else's. Mm-hmm. Well, we went in, we lost 3-2. They had no reason why they voted against us.
Too industrial.
Yes, too industrial. I remember Tom Howarth at the time was the architect on the situation, and Tom was like, "Hey, let's go," and I was like, "No." Well, there was a bunch of older people that helped build Oxford that live in the richest part of Oxford that were in the courtroom that day. You're talking like 60-year-olds, 90-year-olds in there saying, no, like we're not letting this happen. And understandably, they assumed, God spelt assume the way he did for a reason, an ass out of you and me. Mm-hmm. They weren't making the ass. They were assuming that I would be the same business that was right down the road that keeps them up at night.
Right.
Well, so it was just about perspective. They expected my business to be a different business model than it is. Mm-hmm. So they were standing against it. And it really took a lot of persuasion to be able to get there, but it also took a lot of force and God's plan. So while they're standing there and they voted 3-2 against it, one of them literally says, "We still run this city." High fives his buddy. And I'm like, damn, dude, like I'm dealing with the mafia right now.
Yeah.
They leave, and luckily when they left,
it went back to vote.
I went up there to speak. And I held my cross in my hand. I let them know, I'm called to be here. This is my mother's land. We already signed a 20-year lease on this. Like, this is a financial investment that can't go backwards. You're going to bankrupt a business model. You're going to bankrupt humans. We've got 20 employees that have already moved here for jobs because we followed the objective analysis that you put in front of me. This isn't subjective anymore. Mm-hmm. The law is based off objective. You put objects in front of me, doesn't matter what color my skin is, what height I am, as long as I can follow the objectives, everybody in America should be under the same law, or we're not in America. Mm-hmm. And when I proved to them that this is objective analysis, and I got emotional, and I said, like, I mean, I brought God in, and I held this exact same cross, and I know when I held that cross, I was putting it in God's hands, and that Laura Beth Ellis said, "I feel recalled to vote." Mm-hmm. is that possible? And somebody immediately said no. And out of nowhere, the city attorney spoke up and did his job. And he said, actually, he said, you can revote, but it has to happen right now. Once we leave the courtroom, that can't happen. And they revote, and we won 5-0. We won 5-0.
But it could still be appealed.
It could still be appealed. So then you have all this knowledge from doing this. This is great. I love that. So the appeal happens, and out of nowhere, we waited to see if we were going to get appealed, and of course it appeals. And now we went from 40 people in a courtroom to 99 people. The whole courtroom was full.
Wow.
So the next one.
So it became the Oxford.
It became the Oxford talk. Small town. Next thing you know, they appeal it. I pushed forward with that. They're asking me, where's your attorney? Where's your attorney? God aligned me with two important humans that were in the scenes in the background that cared enough about me as a human, but also cared about the ethics of humanity, the ethical part of humanity, right? They genuinely had no reason to offer me help, and they offered me help without charging me anything. Every attorney wanted $10,000 plus to cover the case.
Do you think the hype had anything to do with that?
The hype had everything to do with it, because all eyes were on this case. Sure. So then we end up going in, we win that case, and then now we got to go in front of the Board of Aldermen and the mayor. We win, and when we win, they still tell me, even though what you did was legal, doesn't mean that it's okay, and they end up telling us they're not giving us the permit. We lose our final court date with no real reason. Yeah, it was cool because at the time, again, I'm running full speed, bloody in my nose, and God's saying, slow down, son. I got a plan for you. I got a plan for you. And I'm not listening, dude. I'm not listening. I'm like, dude, no, the money's on the line. We need 400 people now. This isn't going to make it. This 75-person business model is going to fail. This is all your fault. You're not going to stand against me. Well, then, luckily, it was busy that next weekend, and we had over 1,900 people walk through our parking lot. And when we were kids, we were taught that you can't corner cut. Well, my corner is on the corner where you corner cut. Cars are cutting through my parking lot. So then we proved that this is not safe. It's not, you're calling it dangerous, but this is more dangerous. Well, then, luckily, by the grace of God, a fight breaks out in the parking lot that night. And 4 of them happened to have wristbands on from one of the competitive bars. They didn't even come in our bar, and we had proof of that. So now my security is having to break up a fight. I'm breaking up a fight, and these aren't even my customers. Well, we put that all over social media. And the Landshark business model that we have on Facebook has been built on the locals. And the locals are what kept us in business.
They wanted you.
They all said, no, this is not right. They shared the post. Next thing you know, we get 100,000 views on the post. And then out of nowhere, that goes, puts some more eyes on the court. But then since we operated and we opened, they were able to then come in, and those people that weren't sure about our business model were able to come in and get a firsthand experience, or they were to hear from Susie or Donald that, or Karen, should I say. They were able to hear from Karen that it's not as bad as you thought it would be. It's actually a beautiful place. And we brought New Orleans to the corner of Oxford. Sure. And we're honestly the busiest restaurant in town right now because we're new. But the customers are telling us the truth, and I know God's plan has us right where we're supposed to be. I think this will probably expand into Austin, into Tuscaloosa, into Athens. We're trying to take, me and Sean have talked. You've got Walk-Ons that did its thing. This is a version of Walk-Ons but with more college entertainment. Right. So I believe this is something that will continue to expand itself. And one cool thing that I won't leave out. I mean, I had other investors on the meeting. I mean, I had Jeff Finster. I don't know if you know who that is. Jeff Finster is one of my idols. He's one of, literally, I mean, dude, if I've got 3 idols in the world right now when it comes to financial idols, people that have led the way and paved the way, Jeff Finster is one of them. You should check out his podcast. The guy is great. I was cooking crawfish, and last year I was living in an RV. I was going through a relationship battle, and I thought that I was right where I was supposed to be when I made that commitment and things went south, and I crawled into an RV and we weren't living together anymore. And I lived in that RV behind that crawfish trailer all year last year. And that was a blessing because Jeff Finster happened to show up while I was cooking crawfish. We had 30 customers in line.
You know what they call that? Monk mode.
Monk mode. Seriously. That's awesome. So
it's
true.
To me, it's like actually whenever you reconcile your spirituality.
Yeah.
And you got to do it alone.
Yeah, bro, I did. I crawled in there, and I slept in that RV the cold nights and woke up dirty doing crawfish, and I was grateful that it just wasn't a jail cell. And but Landshark had to make it. And I'm cooking the crawfish, and I have a rule at Landshark that if we have 20-ish people, 5 people, whatever it is in line, if we mess up an order, we give 10% off to everybody in line. Well, a woman came up that got 4 pounds. I accidentally gave her 2 and gave the other woman 4. And I announced, hey, I messed an order up, giving everybody 10%. And the only crawfish table I had, Jeff Finster happened to be eating at it with his wife and his daughter. And next thing you know, I go over and I dust him a lobster tail and a snow crab leg because they had spent $300 at that table. And it was the only table we had built. Not even supposed to have a table built in Oxford with crawfish like that. And I dust it to him, and he's like, no, I'm paying for that. I'm like, no, you're not. Well, I go back, I'm cooking, I'm sweating, 4,200 sales that day. It was all by myself, okay? I'd let the guy go that was working with me that morning early, and I shouldn't have. My back was broken off $15 to $30 plates doing those sales, but I went to bed that night, and I remember crying in the bathtub. I did a salt bath, and I was crying. And I was like, man, dude, this is just not it. Like, what's going on? And the next morning I show up, and Jeff's in the parking lot at the food truck. And Jeff motivates me. He's like, man, what you did yesterday is why businesses are where they are and why I'm successful. He said, because I didn't take no for an answer. And next thing you know it, Jeff wants to be the investor behind our brand. And I communicated with Jeff. Jeff owns all the Ever Bowls. Jeff is partners with Drew Brees, Damien on Shark Tank. Jeff builds the big chickens. He built a business model called WeBuild. WeBuild is a company. He decided, why am I going to build all these companies when I can just build them myself? I can cut the cost. How do I make more profit? Don't pay the people to do it. It's genius what he did. I fell in love with the way he built his business, and that's what we do. We vertically monopolize the crawfish industry by selling crawfish from the farm to my trailers, and then by the time they get to Oxford, I've already sold to 19 restaurants. And then Jeff came in and was about to be my partner, and I wanted him so bad because we were literally already paying rent. I was 4 months into it. We were about to lose our court cases, and Jeff was like, Jared, I don't know if you're going to win or not, and I just don't know that this is the time for me to jump on it. And Sean showed up, and Sean said, dude, I believe in you. Let's do it. I talked to Kristen. She was such an easy sell on it because she just follows God, and she trusts Jesus, and they prayed about it. They went to bed and prayed about it, and the next day, the birth of mine and Josh's relationship, and him and Luke's out in Denver, then led me to Sean. And it was crazy, and it's crazy now looking here because this is the first time I've sat on camera and really been this raw about it. I'm this raw in my restaurant. I tell everybody because I promised God I would. But, it's interesting to look back and look at it full circle now because I do keep asking myself what's next because it's not about the velvet ditch. It's not about the land shark. It's not about the money. I don't have money, dude. I don't. I'd be lying to you. My jeans are dirty right now. I don't have money, but that's not going to make me successful. What makes me successful is telling people how God pulled me out when I didn't deserve it and where God's willing to take you when you think you don't deserve it if you're just willing to commit to that. And that's what I do every day. And my staff, I try to instill that in them. And, they probably think I'm hard on them because one decision can change their whole life. That one decision to not put that bacon jam on the plate because you didn't want to make it that day. I tell them that small decision leads you to drinking and driving. That small decision leads you to
small things, right?
Yes. We are contagious as humans, and we're also a nature of addiction. And we can either be addicted to being grateful or we can be a contagious negative ball of energy.
Right.
And it's a choice we have to make, and I wouldn't be able to make that choice if I didn't accept Christ into my life. Not telling people what God to believe in. I believe in Jesus, but I cuss, and I still have fun, and I accept that Jesus died on the cross that day because I'm a failure, and that luckily through that I can reconcile every day by looking in the mirror and know that he died for me to wake up and keep doing it.
You can live it and be proud of yourself.
That's it, dude. And it's hard. That identity crisis is something that somebody that listens to this, hopefully one person's affected in a positive way, to know that identity crisis is normal and that you're not alone, and that, if you think you're going to find you might have a multimillionaire listening to this one day that you would think he's happy, but man, I was happier in that jail cell that day holding God's hand and holding onto that rope when I was in that quicksand than I ever was with any money I've ever made. The $100,000 I made $110,000 at Bonnaroo in 4 days. I lost it all 3 days later.
That's insane.
And there was never a point even on drugs or Molly or mushrooms or any touchdown I ever scored that touched the relationship that I have with God. And every, the business that we live in now, the building that I live in now, he'll tell you I'm there 16 to 18 hours a day, every day. I get more out of talking to people about God than I do about the food. At this point, the food's guaranteed.
Sure.
It comes, the business is coming
cool.
through.
That's so cool, man. Because it's like they always say, like when you find your love, you're not working anymore. But I have, a perspective that it's like we all have a God in us, we all have a father in us, and we all have a child in us. And the child does dumb stuff, and it's like kind of speaks to a lot of our journey through adolescence and just doing dumb stuff and having to pay for the consequences, and obviously how long it takes you to own that. And then at some point we kind of become a father, or at least even if we don't have kids, it's easy to have a perspective of a father and what kids need, and which, and especially now, even the stuff your father did back then, all of a sudden it's like that's like they say, like they were dumb at one point, and then now he's the smartest person ever,
right?
And how much you respect him.
True.
But I think now the transition, the father's between God and the child, and he's got to moderate the situation because the child is still in here.
Facts.
And he's always that's the part of us that's just reverts to our conditioning,
Yeah.
And so I think it's just, but if we can be a good father to ourselves, then in a sense we're noticing the words that we're saying to ourselves and the thoughts that we're allowing to exist, and also how things can manifest from small details that we let slip, especially in like self-talk, and the way we love ourselves properly, and inform the conditions to be proud of yourself. Like take actions that actually are like, I'm like, you look in the mirror and you're like, I like that guy now.
Right.
I really like that guy.
Right. Self-love is so important.
Exactly. But God, in his grace, is forgiveness. But everything on this side from the father and child, it's like forgiveness doesn't exist without, the grace doesn't exist without God.
Right.
And so we got to go to that bank for the grace, because the only place forgiveness comes from, and just like the place that love comes from, is from God.
That's right. And the highest form of forgiveness most of us know without a relationship with God is from our idols, from our parents. And as a kid, like that, if the highest form of love, even as an adult, if the highest form of love and forgiveness you understand comes from humans, you're always going to be let down, because you're never going to be able to satisfy that person enough for you to be fulfilled. And that that is the message of Jesus Christ for me, is having that and knowing that I'm accepted, forgiven, loved, and that no matter what anybody thinks about me, God sees me all by myself, knows who I am. And when I sat in that cell, God knew, like, I didn't rob the drug dealer. I didn't take the money. There was days, dude, like, I'm not going to lie to you. There was a guy passed out at our campsite one time with $40,000 worth of drugs, and I needed the money. And when he passed out on Xanax and Jim Beam, I didn't take it. Even when I was an atheist, I didn't take it. I took the bag, I put it in the bag, I put it in our Yukon, and I skipped our favorite set of music, and I sat with that kid at the campsite until he woke up. And when he woke up, he was out of his mind, high on Xanax, trying to fight. Me and Nuts had to take him to the ground, get security over there. And luckily, when we ran back into him, he was giving his stuff back. And that was, when you do those things, there was something inside of me that was already doing God's work, even though that's not God's work, returning drugs. Sure. The choice of that was huge, and I expected that to come back to me at some point. It was like, when are you going to give it back to me, God? And that's, if you don't know God, you're expecting that from humans.
Right.
When are you going to appreciate me? When are you going to love me? When are you going to be happy?
It's all transactional.
It's empty. It's not a real thing. It's
right.
So that was huge for me, and I don't think you can teach that in a book.
And I'm glad we gave reverence to your spirituality and really talking about God and Christianity, and in two different contexts, in a way where you're really, if you think about it, like the idea of like a Jesus follower. I've even noticed that in our church, that they actually use the word Jesus. They say Jesus follower instead of Christian,
right?
Which I think is important.
Yeah, because they're people are even polluting that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So like true. You said, it's what was the acronym? The Bible acronym?
Basic instructions before leaving Earth. Right. He dumbed it down. He simplified it for us, man.
Right. And isn't that what Jesus that's what it is.
Jesus was crucified by religious people. So many people miss that. You know, we're literally fighting with religion today, but Jesus was crucified by religious people.
Exactly right.
And Jesus was what Jesus did back then, and so many people, we don't teach that enough in church, that Jesus was truly put on a cross because of religious people saying that he was not enough and that he's not who he said he was.
Yeah.
So, you know, when people stand against religion, I'm not talking religion. I'm talking about relationship.
Right.
I'm talking about something that is undeniable. You could offer me $1 billion cash, $1 trillion cash, and put me in the Men in Black where they just scan your brain and make you forget about it. And you could take all those days of prison away and give me $1 billion. I would not be willing to take that because of the relationship that I have through something I cannot see.
That's right.
Because of how real that was for me.
Right. That's incredible. And
I mean, look, like when I'll never forget, I was the first time he kind of gave me a real solid glimpse of the story. I was sitting in my driveway, you know, on a 3-way call with Josh, and I was just sitting there going like, man, this has got to be the wildest story. But not only is it the wildest story, your ability to communicate it in such a like timeline and be able to do it seamlessly is a gift. So for me, I remember the first time we had spoke on the phone, I was like, this guy has a gift. He probably don't even know he has a gift.
he's just being him.
Yeah, and I've spent the last 16 years of my life trying to figure out how to get people to raise their hand just a little above the crowd, and I'm sitting there like, this cat right here is on a dang, he's on the wall, and everybody's laying on the ground. I mean, he doesn't even, and I tell him all the time, I'm speaking life into him all the time because so many times, like, you know, when I was on the phone, it wasn't like an ego thing. And I remember we went to that bachelor trip. It was the weirdest thing because you had a bunch of kind of like alpha males, but everyone was so, you know, it wasn't wild. It was such just a wild mix when we went on that bachelor trip when we first met. It was like all these kind of alpha personalities, but everyone, I mean, we started the morning off with like a Bible study.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, every day.
Isn't that alpha though? I mean,
And no,
yeah,
I'm
it
saying
is.
this, but they were just all these
good
guys,
answer.
and they just loving on each other, and they're telling me, "I love you," and I'm like, they're hugging on each other's neck. It wasn't just like show each other up. It wasn't none of that. It was very impressive for me to be in the first person in that group, going like, "Dang, these guys have been through something together," and it, you know, it reminded me of us, you know, and so it was so drawn to me, and then I got to reconnect again. And I just saw Jared's transparency through mistakes, and I know how I am, and you know me, how transparent I am about my life and the mistakes I made. And I remember hearing his story the first time, and he's probably like, this dude's not going to, you know, but it was the opposite for me because I had been through stuff in my life, and I felt like, you know, I had to get rid of them grave clothes, you know, and that's kind of what he was just kind of preluding to. Like, you know, I knew that, you know, that I am loved, you know, and so when I met Jared, I was like, this dude, man. I was like, so when there was an opportunity to invest in him, I was like, yeah, we could have been selling toothbrushes.
That's right.
Facts.
That's the part of why I said, like, we're here to talk. Well, yeah. Well, that's why I was like, we're
sold them.
Yeah. The Velvet Ditch was, like I said earlier, I was like, that's really, that's important, but like, I really feel like your story, the man, is really special. And hearing it from Sean, I was like, man, I really want to hear you get an opportunity to share it, because I think if it only brings one person,
That's
right?
A win. That's
a win, right? And I think that's kind of our life in a nutshell, and a lot of what I want the Interdimensional Gummy Bear to be is life is a discipleship. Right. And I feel like how you cast your net and be fishers of men, it should be your mission and his mission and mine. Yep. And I think the way we do that unconditionally is like, it's through your life. It's through your lifestyle. It's through your every relationship, and just trying your best to just pour a little of godliness into it, but also that humility of like, that doesn't mean that I have things figured out.
Right.
Like I'm not even close. And that's the whole idea of like almost defeating that Dunning-Kruger effect of like the concept. It's like a psychological concept where we have like a totally unreasonable view of our abilities in general, and in outlandish sense of what, like where we're looking at our impression of ourselves and our abilities. It's really not good generally across the human species, right?
Right.
And so I think that's a part of the egotistical nature of our culture and all these things. But like at the end of the day, I think when we can overcome that, and then we can just start to battle ourselves in a way where we're just, you know, we have to set an example, and the more we have on the line, and the more we develop businesses that can speak into a more spiritual lifestyle, the more I feel like we can be proud of ourselves, and we can really look in the mirror. And not even any of this, because this is all stuff that is Instagram and YouTube and all these things. They're all superficial, and they're all tied to the material hustle that the world's in. But I think when we can show how to like live in a capitalistic structure, be domesticated into the white suburban culture, as you alluded to earlier, but still be able to say like our life and is our story, and looking at your story, it's a movie. It's incredible. And honestly, I try to live my life like for my great grandkids. Like right. It's not for anything other than the fact that like I want them to hear the stories about like the things that I've been through in my life, and like again your story, and just hearing and just seeing about this is just the beginning for you, man.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is. You know, and I appreciate that, but I mean, the whole inspiration. Like, I mean, I walk in here and I see this, and I feel like I'm not doing anything.
that's the point, right?
But that's the
I'm
part.
just keeping it about.
Sure,
you know, that's okay.
When I first got into business, I'll never forget. I went into my first training meeting. It was a Monday morning, and I heard my mentor in business, guy named Mike Landrum, and he said, "The pioneers take the arrows, and the settlers get the land." and that has been like so. And I literally have an arrowhead in the back of my because of that. Because you have to take the arrows, and what you've done and what you've done. You've taken a bunch of arrows, right? Robbie's had to take some arrows. His kids are not going to have to see the same life that he saw, even though he had a great life too. But it's just like you're constantly putting these layers of protection, lifting and lifting and lifting, and these stories of struggle and struggle that maybe your kids won't have to experience the same struggle, but no different than, you know, Solomon and David. Like David wanted to build the temple, but Solomon ended up building the temple. So, but David wouldn't have, you know, Solomon wouldn't have won the battles that David won, right?
Right.
He wasn't the same warrior. So it's like, it's kind of a cool concept. Like our goal as a father, for me especially, and I know for you guys, is to move. I want my kids to move the torch a little further down the road.
That's right.
You know, because I know that I made some mistakes in my life that were similar to what my dad made. So it's like in that part of my life, I'm like, okay, like how can I make sure my kids don't make this mistake?
Right.
That's right.
You know.
I can build on that too. I remember when I was in the car with my dad. We used to meet in McGee, split parents. When I was in the car with my dad was bawling, crying when we finally had our suitcases packed, and he was crying right in the road. I was like, "What's wrong?" And he's like, "You won't get it." He's like, "Y'all won't get it." He's like, "But my job's to make y'all better men than me." And to this day, I know that my father's the best man I know because that's my hero and how good of a dad he's been. You know, but like growing up as in the alpha male mentality, you know, like our mindset is like we compare ourselves to others around us and what did they have and what did they accomplish. It might be cars, it might be a nice house, it might be a nice business, but none of this is really comparable to be a warrior of God, you know, like a warrior.
I love that.
I was sitting in the shower and Christine's like, I said mumbled something to myself because I was kind of talking to myself, and she goes, "What'd you say?" And I said, "I just want to be a warrior for Jesus."
God, there you go.
That's it. Like I feel like that's that season.
That's what you are.
And I know that.
That's what we are. That's what we're. It's an awakening to that, you know. And I always think of it like this: if you think the demons are bad, those angels.
Yeah, exactly. God wins in the end.
That's right.
That's
those
right.
angels.
If not, we would be dead already.
That's
if
right.
Human would have blown this place up already.
But also, we have to be capable of destruction.
Yeah,
we have to be capable. We need to be dangerous people.
Right.
And the Jordan Peterson thing, and then have the discretion. We're choosing to be kind, to be gentle, to be loving, to show an example of what true alpha is fellowship with alphas, and giving reverence to God and not beating our chest about our possessions and the bullcrap. But also the proofs in the pudding, like your life and your success is a testament to that. Like the harvest that we're able to reap is, and also the pain we're able to avoid, right? From not, it's like an escape from that, that whole thing that you were talking about with being an alpha athlete and being in football and the stuff that you have to do to compete and the ideals of comparison, right? And then like, who wants to go back to that?
Right.
That was hell.
Yeah,
exactly. Looking back, like screw that.
And we're gonna live our lives though. It's like we're successful right now, and our kids are. I don't have a child yet, but we're gonna. I tell myself this every day now. Like when you get to the footsteps of God, which it may be tonight, it may be tomorrow, it may be when I leave here. When you get to the footsteps of God, like God's not going to be impressed with anything I did financially. Mm-hmm. Like, and as an alpha male, that's what I wake up trying to do. God's going to look and go, where are they? Mm-hmm. That's what God's going to say. He's going to look around. He says, where are they? Mm-hmm. Who did you bring? Mm-hmm. Who did you bring to me? And daily, if I'm not doing that, when it's all said and done, I could own everything in the world. It's not going to matter because I'm going to get the footsteps of God. And I'm going to let down the one thing that saved me every single day of my life whenever I didn't see it.
Did y'all watch Mel Gibson on Joe Rogan by any chance?
I haven't get to see it yet. But
that's a perfect testament, right? Because he's, hey, I'm broken. I'm alcoholic. Like it's a guy that's just like so in tune with himself and his experience and so at peace with who he is. And like, and I was just thinking like, if you really think about what The Passion of the Christ did, that movie, and you think about that, now he gets to the gates, right? And you think about how many, that piece of work, not only that, how that will continue for generations to affect people. When I watched that, me and my high school girlfriend went and watched that, and I swear we sat in the car and cried for 30 minutes.
Of course.
Just boo-hooed for 30 minutes straight before we could even leave. We couldn't even drive off. And I'm like, that kind of emotional impact is like, that didn't really change who I was in my lifestyle at the time. And it took me a while to bump my head and cycling through things before I finally had true conviction in my heart. Mm-hmm. But that's powerful. And I was just thinking like, dude, this guy, like, it's just, even though some of the stuff is controversial, but he's just like, hey, this is what I believe. I'm not asking you to believe anything.
Right.
And I'm just like, that's pretty cool. Because even stuff that he said that was even counter to my thoughts or beliefs, it was still like, you know what? I still love you. And that's real. Like, I can see like the power and the greatness that you're actually bringing in terms of how he's serving a higher purpose.
Thanks. Right. And we're all called to do that. We just ignore it. Mm-hmm. Everybody is given the opportunity to help somebody get closer. You may be the only Bible anybody ever reads. Mm-hmm. They may not have had an opportunity. And I'm not talking about foreigners here. I'm not talking about people that don't have a Bible in front of them. I'm just talking about you are the possibility of the only representation of a Bible. Because if you're walking around, and I mean, and I definitely have felt it this many times, and I'll fail again at it, as a follower of Jesus, a believer in Jesus, one that would for sure be down to have my head cut off right now in front of anybody, that Jesus is who he said he was and who I know him to be. People are watching that, and you're leading those people, and I know for sure that my friends have grown closer to God through me, but I know that I'm also still not doing enough.
Sure.
And the world's going to constantly speed us up so fast that we're going to miss that, and the more we miss that, the broker we're becoming as men in general. Like, I mean, my wealth is based off of how many people can genuinely, the most proud I've ever been of myself was, no lie, not something when my father said anything to me, nothing. But it was whenever a random person messaged me on Instagram that I have not hung out with, that I used to do drugs with. I haven't hung out with to do drugs. And he messaged me and he said, hey man, like, just the stuff you put on social media helped me become who I am when it comes to my relationship with God. It has put me in a position. And I mean, I would have never, when I was doing the Lions partying with them, I would have never expected that to be what made me proud of myself. Mm-hmm. But nothing to me rewards me more than somebody saying, you have brought me closer to God. Because that's the most fulfilling prophecy that each of us have as humans, especially as leaders, that we should be bringing people closer to that, man. And, you know, I used to be scared of the fear of God, but now I realize the fear of God is you just getting exactly what's owed to you. Don't be scared that you're going to get what's owed to you.
Because from God's perspective, fear is irrational. It doesn't exist.
Right.
So it's like God and fear are kind of almost counter to each other. So it's just interesting to me when, and again, speaking back to religion, about how that should show you everything, just like you were proving your point to the 12 jurors. It's like, if, like fear and God don't align because they're actually opposites of each other, just like black and white. And so I think when we're scared and we're letting fear drive our lives and decisions and intentions, then we're wrong.
Yep.
And then in a sense, like, it's also you're manifesting a dark path.
Yeah, you're not trusting God.
Right. And dude, man, this is so great, and I know we could probably do this forever.
Yep. I appreciate you.
But yeah, man, what a great talk. Dude, this is gonna be a movie one day.
There we go. Interdimensional Gummy Bear.
We were talking to him. We were talking
That's
about
a
this.
great
and
movie.
I just told him, I was like, man, I just can't explain. I said, you just got to meet Jared and like let him tell a story.
Well, see, there was one more part, and I can't not at least ask about it, but you use your discretion as needed. I want to know about the subpoena you ordered.
Okay, so when
You don't listen.
I'll put it out there. They all know it.
Okay.
When the city said no, everything inside of me, he'll tell you, said yes. And even the closest people in his life that understand the law said, Jared, it's just not smart. And I've even been told, it's not smart. You don't want to poke the bear. They all told me, you don't want to poke the bear.
Everybody told you don't do it.
And to talk about what we're talking about right now, when they voted no and everything got shut down, we were going to have to wait months.
After the appeal.
After the appeal, we were going to have to, for the Velvet Ditch Seafood and Sports Bar, we were going to have to restart everything. We were going to have to try to make a business model work off of 25% of a property when we could use 100% of the property. And all the attorneys, even blood-related attorneys, 10 grand plus. Mm-hmm. We had $1,100 in the account. Mm-hmm. We had $1,100 in the account. Mm-hmm. I went in and I filed a $161 piece of paper. But man, you got 10 days to put the appeal out. And I cried myself to sleep 8 of the 9 nights. And on the 9th night, I didn't cry. And I laid in that bed and I put it all out. And I said, God, everybody's telling me not to do it, but I trust you, and I need a sign. And that morning, I got in my car, and I drove to work, and I had already written that I wasn't going to do it. Mm-hmm. And out of nowhere, I got a text message that said, come to this address from a random number, and I will never announce who it was. Mm-hmm. And I pulled up at that address, man I'd never met in my life, and he has a 6-page notice of appeal on the desk for me for free. He said, I'm a professional witness, and what they did to you was wrong, and this is going to get your case completely overturned. He said, but you got to turn it in today. I said, how much, dude? I nearly cried at his desk. How much do I owe you? I gave him a $350 Velvet Ditch card for Christmas, anyway, whenever we get to the accounting part of that. And literally, I went in, I turned in the subpoena, and that subpoenaed basically all the information of them talking about it, possibly publicly, no proof of anything, and we are not further in that case. We are no longer suing Oxford. Our agreement on that was to just do what was right, and let's take up for the aldermen and the mayor and everybody else because they did their job. Their job is to keep the city safe. Mm-hmm. Their job was to make sure that they didn't put anything on the corner that would allow a bunch of people to get killed. Did I like the way they handled it? No, but that's ego. Mm-hmm. They handled it as professional, as technically they knew to do, and they were taking somebody's life into consideration, and they said, just make the corner safer. Mm-hmm. We felt like, why our corner? Everybody else's corner is dangerous, but the timing of that was God's timing. By us not doing that and us not expanding immediately, we were able to perfect 25% of the business model. Right. And now we're able to take small steps to be big steps. And now nobody in the city can say they didn't come to the best restaurant or sports bar in town when it comes to customer service and quality of product. We were able to conquer that, and now we're able to reroute, call an audible, and actually dominate the rest of the 100% of the property.
And then you could scale. You already know the math in terms of what you need to do to scale personnel-wise and what y'all's kitchen can deliver and all that stuff.
It was all God's plan. It was all God's plan. And honestly,
you incubated it a bit.
We did, and I didn't do anything alone on it. It was God's plan from me trusting God all the way up to the last point of the barrel. I mean, the same way, we wait on God to come back. We all believe God's coming. All of us believe He's coming back. We've all got faith in that, and He's going to pick us up in the end, and God's going to win. We're waiting on that. I only had to wait 9 days, so my faith in that was huge. I cried to Him, cried to many people on the phone. Very emotional guy, and my faith is 100% in God, and I know that we're right where we're supposed to be. And the customers that have come in, and the aldermen. The only person I'm
Have they
waiting
all
on,
came in now?
They've all come in and eat. Even
Awesome.
the ones
The
that
mayor?
voted, the mayor's the only one that we have not had come eat at our place yet. But I believe she and her husband will hopefully
invite
come
them.
in.
This might get up in Oxford. Let's invite them. Yeah.
Hopefully they'll come soon. But we have had major feedback, and the aldermen not only came once, they've come multiple times, and they love it. They loved our food, and they finished their whole plate. One of them ate 12 charcoal oysters, 16 Royal Reds, two clusters of snow crab, and filet, and everything in between. So
Yeah, and I think that's the last point in terms of Velvet Dish is like the way you pursued to have freshness, let's say, and in terms of how far you went in the value you've always placed on quality.
Yeah.
You could assume that that's the same thing when it comes to good anything, good brand, good restaurant, good anything. It's just culture. You understand culture. And I think that's a part of that's what Sean helped me learn with his business early on was like I could see how he was building this culture, and it was like he had like 3 years on me, but like trust me, like I apply so much of that time where I was just learning, and I didn't have anything on the line yet, but that's really something that for us, like we really kind of raised each other in certain ways.
Right.
And like he's the friend that is like it's F you, you're right.
Right.
So the friend that tells you something and you're just like, God, it doesn't feel good to be told this because I could like he's actually right, and I like he's calling me out on my crap, and it's like you just gotta it's like I love you, but like get away from me right now, and like we'll talk later. And then this is like it goes back and forth, because it's not fun when you're on that end of it, but like we've both been on that end of it, and like I know whenever I'm on that end of it that it's like, all right, like I might have a million excuses right now, but just shut up and listen to what he's telling me, and I apply it, and I trust him, and he's done the same in his life. And so, man, I'm just happy to have you in my circle. And
likewise.
Thanks
for the introduction.
Yeah, man. And thank you so much for coming down and being on the podcast.
Yeah,
here.
Sebastian, thanks for sitting in over there so quietly. We love you over there.
I enjoyed every bit of that. Every single bit of that.
We appreciate you, man.
Sorry we forgot about you.
No, it's all good.
I mean, the whole thing. I mean, it was really just. I knew that was going to happen before I got here. That wasn't even like, I was like, once he gets going, because his ability to communicate, not just like it's entertaining.
I really wanted to hear it because I mean, like I said, this has just been long. It seems like it was just a part of the plan, right?
One thing's for sure, that last 5 minutes, if I ever was going to piss my pants, it was just then I thought, you know what, I'm going to piss my pants on the first podcast.
Signing off.
Signing off.